Okay, take two. I'm stupid again. Okay, it was working. I just I couldn't hear the thing over the fridge, so ah, the spinny thing with the water. Couldn't hear over the fridge, but it's working. It's working. Yeah. So yeah, yesterday. Oh, I slept good last night. I actually slept like right through till like 9:30 this morning. That never happened. But yesterday I was doing a lot of ice pounding on the top of a roof with the splitting wall, and it's like my arms were burning. Good workout, but it's just like yeah, yeah. It was like, oh wow, it was a good workout center. Trying to get all that ice. This part of the roof let go. That part didn't let go yet. So I'm gonna get the roof rake and break the line so it starts to slide off. One thing I gotta watch out though is if it all slides off in the middle of the night and then freezes, I'm gonna have to bring down the pick to pick my way into the door again because it'll be all blocked off. So we're Wednesday at the making of this video. Uh, guys, for my video for Pinto, okay, I've got an idea. I got ideas. I don't want to tell you what the idea is because it's like I want to surprise you guys with it, right? So today I'm going to do the vocals, and that'll effectively end that song. So I got a bunch of things I got to do down here today. Laundry was number one. It's a little overdue. Number two is record the vocals the best I can. Hopefully I get it done all today. Number three, practice my acoustic set. Number four, read my book more. East Coast Canadian showed me getting arrested by the Mounties, going to jail. So I laughed at it, but on the other, like, am I laughing at something that's about to happen to me, or like when AI becomes reality? So yeah, like all these data centers and stuff. Like wow, like these data centers are not what people think. Like they're not just so we can make better pictures and memes. Like no, I think it's going to be. There's like a theory out there called the dying internet, or basically AI is just going to take over everything that they're, like if you're going to do a Google search, it's just going to be an AI. It's like the Grok stuff and all that. Which again, you have to understand, like this stuff is not intelligent. It's clever in the sense that it works fast and it can come up with, access data really quickly. So it can be used for really good things. But we're talking about our world leaders. They usually never do anything in our interest. So I think like these AI data centers, all the guys, and it's always funny. Like people work on the technology that puts them out of work, but it's like with the AI, it's a little different. Okay, like if you look at it, it could be something really, really, really bad coming, right? Like a complete lockdown of society. Again, this is what the social credit score system is going to be based on. It's going to be if you want to go on the internet, okay, you have to have an ID, a digital ID. So once they got you in that system, that like it will control, like maybe not generation one of it, but generation five. Like you're born, it's like if you want to, okay, we've decided you can be this in your life, or whatever, or you're allowed to live this long on the system, or whatever. And the idea is to lock you out of an alternative system. But I don't think it's going to stop people from finding, subsystems, basically breakaway civilization stuff. It's like, okay, well, if we can't get a driver's license because our credit score is not high enough, we're only allowed to eat this type of food because we're not high enough status. Some AI doctor said we're only allowed this and whatever. We're not allowed to own anything, but we have to be happy about it. Like all these things that these world leaders have been talking about. The Internet of Things and stuff like that. Well, you can't have an Internet of Things without the AI. I don't think. But the thing is the AI is not symbiont. The race for Skynet, I don't think is going to be what people think it is. I don't think we're going to get there in large numbers because society
Now, mind you, the world elites don't care about anybody else but their own circles. They just need enough worker bees until the AI can take over everything, and then they can just let us die in the wastelands, right? So that's kind of what they've got planned for us. If you just listen to them, like, what does net zero mean by Bill Gates when he says we got to bring the human population to net zero? It means no more humans. You know what I mean? Like, these people are insane, right? And I know he's low hanging fruit, but it's not just him. It's like, look, the AI data centers. Microsoft is going to be coming up to Canada to build data centers up here. These data centers are not going to make money. They're like, people that have looked at the math on it, it's like everything. Okay, this data center is going to be worth $200 million in the future. Well, you don't know that. You know, it's a speculation. And they get the investor class because you see, our world is run by investor class, right? Not by entrepreneurs, which is, you know, yes, we've had some pretty amazing breakthroughs, but the innovation gets stagnated when it's just about, okay, well, I don't want to create anything, I just want to put money at it and invest, which is gambling, basically. Problem is a lot of people end up losing. You know, it's the same thing with like the Bitcoin and all that stuff. Yeah, you can make a lot of money, but it's volatile, right? As soon as the world leaders say, well, we're not going to have that system anymore, trust me, your Bitcoin's not going to be worth anything. They'll just crash it because they own most of it anyway. This is what a lot of people don't understand. Like the gold markets, the silver markets, they're all manipulated. You know what I mean? Like, you think gold is really at $4,300 an ounce? You know, U.S. No, you know, with a $38 trillion deficit. Like, you really think it? No, it's probably 10 times that or 100 times that. You know what I mean? You know, the free market isn't a free market. The free market is a bad idea in some ways. Like, you could have, if you have a fence around your free market, no problem. If you don't have a fence around your free market becomes a monopoly, not a free market. And that's what we're seeing, right? I was listening to a girl talk about the Nordic model, which I like aspects of the Nordic model. You know, they're not like, her argument was that Sweden isn't, you know, they have a mixed economy. They're not really a socialist government. And same with like Norway, Finland, and Denmark, right? And it's kind of true. Yeah, they do use a lot of capitalism. I mean, look at Saab right now with Canada. I mean, like they're hitting us up to buy everything from them, right? So you know, they're using the investor class and stuff like that. But I've always said this about world leaders is that the world elites, they use whatever works for them. So if capitalism works for them, they'll use it. If communism works for them, they'll use it. If fascism works for them, they'll use it. And they'll use all these systems at the same time. That's why, like, it's hard to, you know, to describe what globalism actually is, right? But at the end of the day, it's to fund their toys and their products, and AI is one of them. So we'll see where that goes. But basically, a jobless future, basically. Other stuff that I was looking at last night, like Canada's submarine bid. The Germans, they're going to build the U212 CE, which is a really cool looking submarine. It could be the most advanced diesel electric submarine ever built, if they ever build it. Now, they have a version of the U212, which is really cool, and I think would be great for Canada. The problem is the U212 is as old as our submarines that we have, right? So, like, it's not something that, it's not going to be new cutting edge technology, even though it's very innovative for its time. But Sweden is on the cusp with Norway and Finland, I believe, and Greenland, or the Netherlands, in building the A26. And I think the A26 is, I notice the camera changes its hue as soon as I move. Funny. But the A26 is basically, I think, a better option if it's being built. Because I know they started that project about 5 years ago, so maybe they're getting closer to construction. The South Korean submarine, the KSS-3, looks like an awesome submarine, but the problem is, like, right now it's down to 2. But I always wondered why Canada didn't look at the A26. I don't know where it is in its development, but it's got to be further down the road, with the exception of the the South Korean sub because the South Korean sub's already they're already manufacturing them, right? But that said, South Korean subs are meant for the South China Sea. How will they do in the Arctic? This is something that has to be. We have to borrow one of their subs, take some of our submarine crews on there for say like 6 months to a year and evaluate the system. I think with the German subs, if we can make a lend-lease deal with them as well, say, hey, look, we'll do cross-training for in the Arctic with both of these submarines and see what does better. So at least we have an idea of what will happen with the, to operate these subs. How well do they do in these subarctic waters? The French came with their Barracuda sub to spend some time up in the Arctic to see how it'll do in the Arctic waters, right? Oh. Something fell off the roof. I just heard it. And then while we're at it, we could maybe make a deal with the Swedes to take one of their submarines and see how they do in the Arctic waters, right? And my hunch is the Swedish submarines are probably the best setup for the Arctic because that's what they're purpose built. But just because they're built for the Arctic doesn't mean they won't work, say, in the Antarctic or they won't work in the South China Sea. It's just they might have extra features that people in the South. It's kind of like when you buy a Honda, like from the '90s or the early 2000s. Like it'll work in Canada, but you could tell the car wasn't designed to be in Canadian winters. You know what I mean? It works great. Everything else works great, but like the heater's not adequate. The defog's not adequate. It's like because they don't have this experience, right? Of the Arctic, right? Or really cold Canadian winters. So the A-26 kind of solves all these problems. So it's not going to just be the actual operation of the sub, but like how to refuel the sub in the Arctic, how maybe rearming the sub and stuff like that. Like how do you do that in the Arctic, right? The Swedes might have say, okay, well, the major service center, we have one here in Sweden. So Canada, you bring your submarines over here for now until you can build your own. Whereas if we have to take a submarine to South Korea every time we have to do major maintenance on it, you know what I mean? That could be a problem. Or Germany, you know what I mean? Where Sweden is really just a hop, skip, and a jump if we have submarines already stationed up in the Arctic. The A-26 is the submarine that so far fascinates me most, next to the German 212 CE, and then in the number 3 spot is the Korean sub. But I think it doesn't really matter which one we go with. I think they're all going to be really, really astoundingly good. But I think the A-26 will probably be the best, over multi-operational subs, especially at shallower depths, right? And the Arctic, believe it or not, there's a lot. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of deep water in the Arctic, but there's also a lot of shallow depths and shoals in the Arctic too, right? And as I was talking about the Northwest Passage, look, everybody wants that. The Americans want to steal it from us. The Russians want to steal it from us. The Chinese definitely want it. It was Finland that sent their first commercial ship through it, but they didn't go directly through the main route at the top there. They went through by Pond Inlet and all that. But after they did that, it caught the attention of the world that a commercial freighter could make it through there, right? And those were our waters, and they obviously had permission. But now everybody's like, well, no, it's international waterways. No, it's clearly within our. You know what I mean? It's not international waterways. If the Americans owned it, they would be saying, no, that's our inland waterway. There'd be no debate on it whatsoever. So the question isn't whether it's debated and the rest of the world agrees. That's it. Well, we all disagree with Canada. It still doesn't matter if you disagree with it. It's our waters, right? So the question then becomes where do we set up the anti-shipping missiling? Where do we set up the air defense? Where do we set up the radars? A lot of people don't understand, the Harry DeWolf, class patrol boats, which they're not warships per se. They're run by the Canadian Navy. Some might be in the future built for the Canadian Coast Guard, which is the branch of the military. They put them together as one, but the thing is that those things have a very, they're very Arctic focused, right? That's why we see them in Arctic and the Antarctic and stuff like that. Canadian ships that are coming out, they're very fascinating, especially our research ships and stuff like that. They're designed to be in the worst conditions ever, right? Like the coldest climates, like the North Sea, okay, is like when in the Baltic Sea and stuff like that. These are really, really nasty places to be in, right? Anything up in the Arctic Circle is nasty to be in, but being up in the Arctic Circle, your ship has to not only be able to survive the cold and the rough waves, but the ice. Now the thing is when it gets cold, usually what ends up happening is the water calms down, right? That's, it calms down, right? But you can get a little bit of everything in there. So you have to have a ship that could sit in the ice, while being sloshed around a bit too. Even if you don't get the same wave action or whatever, you still get it, right? So ships have to be built really, really, really tough to be able to survive that. So there's very few ships that can go through the Northwest Passage on the best of days. You know what I mean? And the only nations that are capable, there's very few Arctic nations. There's only 8 of us, right? That classify. Now China's saying they're a near Arctic nation. Yeah, that's like saying Canada's like a near equator nation. Like China's way the hell down. Can't reach it. Anyway, you can see where China is, right? So like it's like that. No, that's like thousands and thousands of miles from the Arctic. You know what I mean? It's like no. But it is in China's best interest to be able to go through there. Now, what Trump is proposing with the this Northern Hemisphere or this sphere of influence Monroe Doctrine 2.0 thing is that they'll control who goes through Canadian waters. That is a contest of sovereignty. No, you can't just do that. Just because you made a law in your country saying what we can do in our countries doesn't mean we have to honor that, right? And the U.S. Navy can't really get up there the way people think. Like, to get a carrier fleet through the Arctic is not easy. You do have to have, owning just 2 icebreakers is not going to do it. You'd have a hard enough time with all 19 of our icebreakers to be able to keep that up and going, right? So that's why, like, our patrol boat, the Harry DeWolf, is a light icebreaker. It can, it'll follow the Louis Saint Laurent, which is one of the heaviest icebreakers in the world. The Russians, they have about double our fleet, and they're going to be building. Well, Stalin announced it. I don't know if they're going to build it, but if they do, it'll be 30 years, 40 years before you see the thing. The Stalingrad, the largest icebreaker. Like the polar class icebreakers that Canada's having built, yes, Finland is starting them now. Like, there's going to be 3 levels of icebreakers that we have, right? And the polar class is going to be the largest icebreaker in the world, until the Stalingrad. So you got to see the picture of the thing. It's like the artist's conception. It's like this giant Soviet style, big red star right on the front of it, like massive, like 12-story. Building on the top of it. Pretty impressive. I love icebreakers. I think they're just fascinating ships. There's lots of documentaries on the Louis Saint Laurent and stuff like that. And, like, if I was going to spend time up in the Arctic, that would be neat. That would be neat to be on an icebreaker. It would be a job. It'd be a tough job, but like whatever, like even if I was just mopping the decks, you know what I mean? Okay, I'm just here to mop decks and whatever. I wouldn't want to work in the kitchen. Absolutely not. Like that to me is like, you're in a ship all day working in a kitchen? No. Or a galley. If you want to call it the galley, we'll call it the galley. But no, like doing something maintenance oriented on the ship in the engine room for a little bit. You know, even out on the deck breaking the ice. You know, like that'd be a really tough job, but it'd be definitely, you know, like you'd have to be able to like psych yourself out to be in like -7, you know, like that's a thing. -63 with the wind chill was something else to experience. That's the coldest I've ever been in, and I got to tell you, it was something else. I've been in -58, -52, -54, -48 many times, -45 many times, -40. You know, that's pretty much every Canadian winter, right? -38, very very common. You know, late February. You know, mid January to late February. That, you know, that's nothing. That's nothing. Just dress for it. You know. Okay, what that means is one pair of normal socks, pair of wool socks, pair of long johns, or maybe two pair of long johns, undershirt, sweater, two jackets. You're good. Toque liner, two toques, goggles. You're good. And you know, liner gloves. You're good. That's -38. -60 is like three toques, toque liner, earmuffs, scarf, short sleeve, long sleeve, sweater, undercoat, second coat, third coat. Two pairs of long johns, possibly three. Three sets of socks. And the heaviest gloves possibly known to man with liners, extra liners on. That's -63. And you're like, you can't move. You can barely move. Your clothes will crack. It's weird. Like you like your clothes actually crack in that kind of cold. It's something else. And even at that, I got frost nip in my ear. Even with that, crossing the Alexandria Bridge, that was something else. Yeah, like people just don't realize how cold it can get. Like I can't imagine the people that live in Vladivostok or whatever in Russia. There, it's like you see like they got like little huts around their cars because like they just, I don't know how people function. Like how can you even get out of your house? There'd be frost on your walls. Like how do you stay warm? You know, like if the gas heat goes out -50, -70. The coldest I think is up around that area. Was over 100 below it. -96, your breath just freezes and hits the ground. But you breathe that in, you'll damage your lungs for sure. Like, yeah, you'd die. You'd die breathing that in. that'd be incredibly dangerous. Yeah, yeah. It's yeah, no skin, like past -30, no skin exposure whatsoever, or else you could get frostbite. -38, you can get away with it if there's not too much wind. -40 plus, -40 and beyond is basically real danger zone. Like you can instantly, you can have your hands flash freeze and get what you call it, frostbite. Wherever you get frostbite, basically it's dead. Like it's dead. Like you know, very few people. They'll get frostbite up in the Arctic and not realize it. Like their toes will get cold, and then you know their feet turn into a block of ice and they lose all their toes to frostbite. Stuff like that. That's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, what do you do with that, right? So yeah, so but anyway, getting back to the icebreakers. So like the submarines that we're getting, like the picture's starting to be painted a bit now to what's going on in Canada with our military and stuff like. So like for example, we're about to build a bunch of new C7 rifles, whatever, new battle rifles, and basically right now Canada has in its military inventory just of the main C7 and C8 rifles are something like 65,000. So That's why, like I say, like the idea of invading, the United States invading Canada would be so detrimental. If you go with just one successful shot per rifle, that's 65,000 dead. If you go with the NATO standard of a 3-to-1 in favor of the defendant, you're looking at 108, almost a quarter million people dead just off of that. You know what I mean? Even though battlefields, it's still right now the main thing that kills you is artillery and drones and cruise missiles are the main things killing people on the battlefields of Ukraine, right? But what I'm getting at is Canada is pivoting away from the United States, and I think a lot of it has to do with the Arctic. Everybody wants a piece of that Arctic. I'm really not like I think it's a gamble to like all the people that believe in climate change and stuff like that. Okay, fine, go ahead and believe in it. I've looked at the data, and what I see is that okay, yes, we're in a bit of a warming period, but no, it's not anthropogenic man-made global warming. No, it has nothing really to do with the CO2 and carbon, and like it doesn't. The science is it's just not there. And trust me, I've looked, and I've looked, and I've looked, and it's always models, climate models. No, okay, I want to see the data. What's the data telling us? The past tense data. The data never adds up. So when they're saying that the Arctic is going to be completely ice free by XYZ year, they don't know this. The Arctic is not opening up because of climate change. It's opening up because of icebreakers. Like, gee, why is the sea ice not as thick as it was before? Because you just put the Louis Saint Laurent and the St. Peter, the St. Petersburg or Peter the Great, the Peter the Great, which that's probably one of the coolest icebreakers. It's a Russian icebreaker, nuclear icebreaker. It's old as the hills. It's got shark teeth on the front of it. It looks really cool. Real boaty looking boat. But you can run those things through the Arctic a gazillion times and bust up all that ice and have it flow out the Bering Strait. Over time, yeah, the thick ice is going to go away, But what happens if you don't open up the Arctic for, say, 3 years? It'll take you 100 years to open it again. You know what I mean? The ice would get so thick. Like, you have to understand, to get through the Northwest Passage, Canada had to blast its way through. You know what I mean? That took decades. 70, 80 years of icebreakers busting the shit out of the ice up there. That's why there's no ice in the Arctic. Not because of global warming. The methane release and all that, like I understand how all that works too, but that's a byproduct of opening up the Arctic. You know what I mean? So, would we, like, if we left the Arctic alone for 10 years, would we bounce into an ice age? Possibly. You know what I mean? Because again, it would never warm up, right? It would just be permafrost and 20 foot thick ice. You know what I mean? That's what we had to blast through to get through the Arctic. Right? I remember watching the documentaries on it in the back in the 90s of what it took to get through the Northwest Passage when we finally found our way through. Because it's not as and back then the technology was kind of like you had to wait till like a few summer months, and then you had to you'd get this far this year, next year you get this far, and then until you found an actual way through, because you couldn't tell where the land began and the ocean, where with all the ice there, just because everything was just ice, whether it was on land or ocean. So it's hard to tell what was where, right? But if the Northwest Passage is straight across an ocean, what does that mean? Well, what it means is a ship that leaves from China, okay, and wants to go basically through the Suez Canal, okay, to Europe, okay, has to spend an extra week or so at sea, right? Where you could save about 6,000 miles off of your trip if you go through the Arctic, which saves approximately $80,000 per week. You know what I mean? So, again, your freighters will be at sea for less time, less risk, faster product delivery, blah 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 blah. You get all that. lower maintenance because you're not running it as long, blah, blah, blah. But there's a problem, bottleneck. I can imagine you can put thousands of freighters through the Northwest Passage at any one given time, but it definitely would have to have a navigational route. Like I said, there's a lot of shoals and stuff. What Canada is proposing, and the Americans can't really do anything about this. This is something that it must piss Donald Trump off something severe, because it's like they don't have, the Americans don't have the ability to basically take care and, basically host, like usually the hosting country, like in Panama, will be the ones to, okay, the freighter, we're going to tow the freighter through this area because we know the navigational route. We have safety crews in case of problems, and then we control the passage, right? So that way you don't have like 82 freighters or 800 freighters trying to bottleneck their way through the Northwest Passage, getting stuck on shoals and crashing into each other, or going in at the wrong time of the year and getting stuck in the Arctic ice. It's going to need to be heavily policed just for safety's sake. If not, you're going to have basically freighters blocking the Northwest Passage because it'll be like the St. Lawrence River. A lot of people don't realize this about the St. Lawrence River and the Seaway. There's more shipwrecks in that area than anywhere else in the world. Like, people don't realize that it's the most shipwrecked waterway in the world because it's been 500 years of people coming up and down that canal. And there's like giant freighters if you go down to the Gananoque part of it, just before you get to the Thousand Island Bridge. I think it's even within visual of the Thousand Island Bridge. You're going, and it's like you're on the thing, and here's an island here, here's an island here, and the waterway here is about 100 and some odd feet wide. And like, just below us is the freighter. I forget the name of the freighter. 160 feet long, down there in about 80 feet of water. It's like you had no idea it was there. And it's like, yeah, there's freaking Spanish galleons in there. There's everything in there. There's colonial ships. There's all kinds of fishing boats. There's all kinds of, like, I guess just domestic boats. There's probably canoes and kayaks stuff in there too, right? But a lot of commercial freighters have been sunk in there, just because it's a congested waterway. Well, that could become congested. Like when we're talking something as Goliath and Leviathan size as freighters. You put oil freighters through there, and one hits, that's an ecological disaster, right? And how do you deal with that, right? So Canada, this is what the Icebreaker program, I think, is really about, is keeping those waterways navigable, and being able to actually, have safe passage in there. But if we're looking at the Monroe Doctrine thing, that means China can't use it, right? And China, like, they want it more than anybody because they're the world's manufacturer, right? If they can knock, it's the fast way to Europe. The thing is, it would have put the Panama Canal and the Suez Canal out of business. No, but you would see a drop in business big time going through those routes. Right, because it's the same. Like if Argentina could ever figure out a safe way through the Cape Horn, same thing. Like South America could use that route, down there. But the Cape Horn, the reason why the Panama Canal was built, and there's another second canal that they were going to open up. I don't know if they did yet or not. But the thing is that. Yeah, you can't get through there safely. Like that's probably the second most shipwrecked area in the world, just because you got high winds with mixed tides, with cross current, with shallow shoals all over the place. Yeah, like making it through there's sailors that sail through there on the around the Loan, and it's the most dangerous waterway known to man, right? It's just like, yeah. That's why, like I say, the things like the Suez Canal is pretty safe, but you're in a very, very dangerous part of the world where you got to go through, right? So, like, and then you've got, like the Strait of Hormuz and all that, which, again, freighters are getting whacked there. You got the U.S. stealing freighters on the Venezuelans and the Iranians, and you got Iranians stealing U.S. freighter. It's like, I don't know if I'd want to serve on a freaking commercial freighter in these parts of the world, because it's just like everybody like the United States has turned to piracy. It's literally turned to piracy. It's bizarre. But no, the Canadian Arctic, I think, like our warships are taking that kind of Arctic approach. The Nordic alliance that's going on between Canada and the Nordic countries, which is kind of chopping out, like you have all these mid-power countries like Canada, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Netherlands, which would include Greenland. And I guess Iceland will be jumping in on it as well. I just haven't heard much about Iceland. But then again, Iceland is kind of like, it's not even 1 million people, so it's like they don't really, they're kind of just there. They don't really get involved with all this world stuff because they simply can't, right? But they do have industries there that, it's just, they're not like Finland, where Finland's fairly well industrialized, especially in the shipping yard. They're one of the best shipyards in the world, quality control wise. The Canadian shipyards are pretty darn good too. I don't know where we rank as shipbuilders. Like, I know China's building more ships than anybody else in the world, and then Singapore and places like that, and South Korea, they're popping out stuff left, right, and center. But those countries have put a very big emphasis on their manufacturing. Canada is deindustrialized back in the 90s for NAFTA, right? And this is why we're in the problems of not being able to build our own stuff now, because, somebody else is going to build it, right? And the United States went on, they made the same mistake we did. It's just they happen to have, just because they're, economy of scale, they just happen to have a little bit more manufacturing than us. But they have the same problems. They can't just build stuff themselves either. And this is a problem in the West. And Germany is, because of the green economy, has started to deindustrialize, because it's like, oh no, we're going to have environmental regulations, we're going to be clean and everything like that. We're just going to offset all our manufacturing to countries that have no regulations whatsoever. So, like, this whole environmental green economy thing, that's one of the big bullshit scams of it, is they're just going to go to the cheap labor in the third world countries and second world countries. They're not, they're putting our own guys out for their bottom line. That's it. That's all that's happening. It's not about saving the planet. It's not, it's never about that stuff, right? But the point is that whatever happens in the Arctic, I think what we're going to see is, like, for example, the Canadian Navy, when the Type 26, don't confuse the A-26 submarine with the Type 26 destroyer. Some are calling it a frigate, some are calling it a destroyer. I think to me, it's a destroyer. Classification-wise, it should be a destroyer. But it might be considered a river-class frigate, but it's just going to be the largest frigate ever built. The Brits referred to their Type 26s as destroyers. So I'm like, well, their Type 26 and Australia's Type 26s are destroyers. Why would ours be considered frigates? So people don't know what to call them, right? So the thing is that these destroyers and frigates, the problem you get with them is that they're not good at going through ice, like the ice, as much, because you have to put equipment on the bottom of the boats to be able to detect submarines, stuff like that. But the thing is that if you have something breaking the ice for you and you can get through, you can have warships patrolling. But I think ground radar and the over-the-horizon radar systems which the Russians and the Americans and the Chinese are very upset about Canada getting. If they work as good as advertised, it means we'll be able to see from land where the Russian and American and Chinese submarines are, because they'll be able to detect the magnetic anomalies through the atmosphere. It's really the over the horizon radar system is like will decouple us from NORAD if it has to, but it would be a massive force multiplier for NORAD. But Donald Trump is pushing us away, right? Because Canada sucks, and we're picking on the poor Americans all the time and stealing all their jobs and doing all these horrible things to the Americans all the time, right? We're so unfair and unreasonable, blah blah blah, right? So none of it's true. It's what he's got his base convinced of. But the thing is that America is like losing influence over Canada. Now, the good thing that it gives us an opportunity is for Canada to become more independent. But we got to pull up our pants fast, because the Americans are going to be hostile to us. Well, they're hostile to us now. They're going to be hostile to us once, give it 10, 15 years, if we can keep the Arctic open. My hunch is that we're going to get a flash freeze, and that like all this investment in icebreakers and stuff, that's going to come to a grinding halt anyway, because it's like, well, we just can't get up there. There won't be enough C4 dynamite in the world to blast our way through. Yeah, like every nuke on the planet won't be able to get us through the Arctic, just because the ice is now 30 feet thick. Just because, I don't know, Mother Nature. Oh, they just got the Northwest Passage open, good. Oh yeah, they got a bunch of freighters up there. Oh, what was it that I did to the mammoths? Oh yeah, flash freeze. Middle of July, flash freeze. Suddenly you got like 800 freighters up there stuck in the Arctic ice. No way to get the people out. It'd be just a nightmare. But what Canada will have to do is set up all kinds of docking stations and search and rescue, fueling stations, obviously customs ports to see who's bringing what through our waters. Obviously, have the Canadian Navy have a strong presence within our waterways. And the idea would be to make sure that we control it fair and square. People want to use the Northwest Passage. Okay, there will be shipping fees. That to help keep our Coast Guard up there and all that. Like, we're already up there doing this stuff. It's just the focus will be on the commercial angle of it rather than just like we're already up there. There's piracy up there, right? There's a lot of people don't realize this, but there's a lot of smuggle ships that try to bring in drugs and stuff through the Arctic, believe it or not. And that's what our submarines, we catch ships up there, like strange activity, so to speak, up in the Arctic. But I guess everything in the Arctic is kind of strange to begin with, because it's like another planet, right? But yeah, our submarines, they track ships, from other countries. We catch drug runners. We can, like, a lot of people don't realize it, but yeah, it is a problem. It's not a huge problem, but it is a problem. People do take that route. So I can imagine weapons ships try to get, okay, we want to smuggle something from North Korea to somewhere else, whatever. Who knows, to Russia or something like that. They might be trying to come through our waters to do this. So obviously, building 12 submarines for the Canadian Navy, while we're about to put our personnel up to 300,000 in conscripts, which this whole conscript thing, I have a neutral look at it, because it's something that we need. Like, I like the Nordic models with their conscripts and stuff like that. But on the other hand, on one side, we got this, conscript model, when the no-brainer is like, well, we already have gun owners. You know what I mean? Let's just offer it to the public. But a lot of this conscript stuff looks like it's going to be used more for locking down the civic population from the conspiracy side. Or just like, okay, we need to throw more cannon fodder at Ukraine. This is why nobody wants to do, like, conscription, right? It's like, yeah, no, I'm not going to go fight and die for it. Like, you got the military branch of military out there in the UK talking about how they, we need new fighting forces and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, so to go to die for banksters, no thanks. Like nobody wants to fight the Russians. We don't need to. I feel bad for the Ukrainians. They got their asses handed to them, and they got taken advantage of by the West. Oh, you're going to be a part of the NATO. You're going to be a part of the EU. Oh well, we can't. But make sure you fight Russia till the last Ukrainian. Yeah, poor Ukrainians. And again, because of the evil people that are in charge, right? But no, a conscript military in Canada is a no brainer. It's a no brainer. But while you're trying to do a freaking gun ban, which is not working out, good news on that a little bit. Out of the 138 police forces in Canada, only 2 have accepted to actually do the gun confiscation. So, and that the one in Nova Scotia that did it, the guy had to step down. The mayor or whoever it was had to step down, the police chief or whatever it was, because the backlash was just, it's very unpopular, right? And again, just to keep the anti-gun lobby, the George Soros-funded Coalition for Gun Control, gun lobby happy, no. I think Carney is going to look for a way out on that, just because he knows it's not popular. He has to pander to his radical liberals, sure, but he knows it's not popular even amongst a lot of liberals to waste money on something like that while criminals get let go for the most insane things because you can't if somebody's if you got a minority that commits a crime and you arrest them for that could be racism. Like people are so fed up with that, it's not funny. We can't do that anymore, right? But what we can do is we can say, hey, look, we got 2 million plus gun owners. Okay, we can people with that have already a firearms ownership could maybe get a fast track if they want to volunteer for a 3-week course or whatever. They were recommending a 2-week training course as a conscript, right? Okay, well, what's that course going to consist of, right? So is it just going to be, here's how you sandbag, here's natural disaster, but no weapons training? Well, then what's the point of having conscripts? Well, it does make sense for natural disaster relief and stuff like that, and helping the military that way. But you do, like having 300,000 conscripts with rifles at home with a minimum of 100 rounds per rifle, or one main rifle has to have at least 100 rounds to be in this program at home at all times. That's a 100-round garrison at times 300,000, right? So, you know what I mean? Like that's a lot of ammo that could fend off an invading force. If you get even if you lose 10-1, you know what I mean? You're going to take away so much of the capability of an invading military. It's a no-brainer. It's just a no-brainer. Like a gun behind every blade of grass is a no-brainer. Sure, drones and high-tech stuff that the militaries have will, like I say, kill civilians 15-20-1, but you're still going to, it's still a force multiplier, and the overhead cost is like next to nothing. Now that said, the 65,000, rifles, C7, C8 rifles, they're probably going to give them to the Ukraine. That's my hunch. But what I would say is, okay, well, convert them to semi-autos only, and say anybody that takes the course can get one of these rifles, and you keep the rifle at home like the Swedes do with 100 rounds plus. You take the rifle home with you, and it's a great way to phase out the rifle. But because the FNFALs, we destroyed those, and we had thousands of them, and we destroyed them when the government could have sold those off to whatever. They could have converted them to semi-auto and sold them amongst the population. Can you imagine having those battle rifles, as a backup? That's the thing. Canada doesn't have a backup garrison. I'm a big believer in stopgap technology to build your numbers up. For example, you take older generation aircraft, older generation tanks, and you just get numbers, right? You get the stuff as cheaply as you can, and you get numbers. and you use it as a second line, third line, whatever. But the idea is that you have a backup. Every other nation does this. The problem is when you, let's say you went and bought, for example, Tornadoes. They're an expensive aircraft to run, right? But there was about 1,000 of them built. You could probably get, 400 to 800 of those things, probably a lot cheaper. Maybe you just buy them as a sop, maybe buy 100, okay, and you just have 100 there, and you fly, say, 10 of them on a regular basis until you get like say a 4-to-1, 5-to-1 pilot ratio, and the rest just sit there, either in mothball or in what do you call it, or in ready status, and you just keep the flying hours low on them, but you have them as a backup, a backup air force basically. Out of the 5,000 F4 Phantoms built, you could again probably get anywhere from 400 to 1,800 of those on the used market. Okay, they're not frontline fighters, but again, you could use them as extra flying time. You could cycle through them, and you have an extra 1,200 aircraft that could follow your high-tech aircraft in on bombing runs. Say, okay, you have like 20 F4 Phantoms loaded up with free fall bombs. SOP Gripens go in, take out the air defense systems, that kind of thing. Okay, sky's clear, guys. Go in, pound the shit out of the target. There you go, done in a day, right? That would make sense to do that. The public would outcry would be, oh my God, we're buying old equipment and worn out equipment, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, well, here's what we could do with submarines. You want 12 submarines? Okay, well, maybe we buy those Scorpion submarines from Chile. Okay, and those. Maybe we get one more from France, and then we'd have 8 submarines, and then maybe we can get another, say, 2 from Germany of those, 212s, whatever. Get 2 of those. Maybe we get 2 from the Swedes. They're gone for the submarines. Suddenly, your 12 you got your 12 submarines, right? Okay, it's a mixed fleet for now because that's what's available, right? Tanks. Okay, we get 2,600 tanks from Germany. Leopard 1s, 2s, 2 A4s, etc. Maybe a few 2 A6s. We could do that. You don't have to run them all in one shot, but you keep everything ready to go. And then as you either build up over the next 10 years, build up your industries, you can then just replace the stuff. And you can either melt down the old stuff, take it out of the world, give it away, sell it, whatever, And I think that's what Canada needs to do to get its numbers up. But recruitment is slightly up in Canada. It's down in the States. It's down in the UK. The thing about it is that the recruitment will be up for different reasons. The main thing killing recruitment in the West is woke and World War III. That's the two main things. And woke even more. No man wants to be yelled at by yet another man in a dress. Like it just, and this whole girl boss, feminist military, female generals, like they're just not good at it. Like, you know what I mean? This diversity is our strength and we cherish diversity. The battlefield doesn't give a shit about diversity. It's kill or be killed. You need the most maniacal, you need the Canadian Airborne back is what you need. You need the Devil's Brigade. You need the most insane, winner take all, testosterone loaded war dogs out there. That's what you need out there. You don't want a compassionate military. You want a fucking mean, angry, psychotic, but under control military. That's what you want with technical edge. That's what you want. And Canada has the potential for that. Like, I mean, the Canadian fighting spirit is very well documented. Maple Leaf Up, right? Very historical moment. Elbows Up, people laugh at it, but you got to understand that's going to lead to Maple Leaf Up. And when you have Maple Leaf Up, you've got a World War I Canadian, the most brutal soldiers that the West has ever seen. Like who are the number one human rights violators in the world? Canada. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize we're the number. Mind you, most of it was done during war. You know what I mean? just because of the brutality that we brought to the battlefield. Nobody liked fighting with us because it was like, we're just fucking evil. You know, these nights, I mean, we're right sorry on our bullets, but we'll shoot you right in the cock. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, sorry about that, bud. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, we're just that mean, right? Like, oh, let's take a club that we're going to beat a man to death with. Something wrong with this, eh? Yeah, let's put some barbed wire on it. Yeah, the trench club. Oh, got a kitchen knife in the trench? Yeah, let's make it jagged. You know? Let's throw him a can of Spam and then throw a hand grenade right after it. Yeah. Like, we're just such assholes. But winner take all. That's what you want, you know. Look, when they want to go to war, they bring out the white guy promotional videos, right? But people aren't falling for it. Like, no, nobody wants to go fight and die for the Ukraine on behalf of Jewish bankers. Like, it's that simple. The Zionist bankers, no, sorry, you're out. We don't care about you. We hate you. Go fuck off and die now. Yeah. They're not buying this women and children democracy bullshit, because it's never about that. It's about empirism. It's about all these bad things, right? And that's why your recruitments are low. But that said, if you focus on Canada should not be a peacekeeping force. It should not be a international force. The money we waste in NATO, like I'm not saying we couldn't have partnerships with NATO countries and, hosting war games and stuff like that. But we should have, I don't know why Sweden joined on to NATO. Like they had a good deal with what they were doing. Yes, we'll do training, cross training and stuff like that. But we're finding out that in Ukraine that the NATO training is no good. Like it's World War II training on steroids, but it's no good. It doesn't work. You can't even get across a stream with a tank because of the drones. Like, it's not modern warfare. Modern warfare is a weird thing that has World War I trenches in it with drone delivery artillery. Like the mortar gun is being. It's like, why throw this mortar in the mortar gun and see if we can get it accurately to the target, when we could just fly the drone right over the trench and drop the thing right in, right? The drone warfare is probably one of the most evil things to ever hit the battlefield. It's just so cruel and cold. But if you wanted to win, that's how you'd win. I think that's what a lot of the AI data centers is all about. Is like, it's like, okay, yeah, let's pacify everybody on the internet with these funny internet AI videos, and then once we can get functioning Skynet style drone swarms, we'll just overwhelm this country, that country, and it'll be over in a day, and we'll just kill whoever we want to kill. That's what I think they're working on. I don't know where these people come from. It's how are they so evil? You know what I mean? It's just we have to create these terrible, terrible weapons, right? But if you're going to have weapons, you might as well have the terrible ones. You know what I mean? It just, this is what Canada's got to kind of reverse course on. And of course, again, I'm a conservative person, but when I hear like normie conservatives out there, everything's wrong, and the Carney government, this isn't working. It's like, the guy's been in there only 2 minutes. You know what I mean? I don't like Carney. You guys know that. But I'm watching what he's doing, and I'm like, if Pierre Poilievre, and this is one of the best things about Carney, is that the Liberal policies are so bad that he has to steal Pierre's platform. He's probably, I've said he's told maybe about 25% of Pierre's platform. So if Pierre was in there doing these things, even Pierre Poilievre himself is sitting there pulling his own hair out. He's like, the fucking guy stole my platform. At first it was, we can't do that, blah, 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 it's a bad idea. Then it's like, okay, well we're going to take the idea, but it's better that we implement it than you. You know what I mean? It's like, but at the end of the day, okay, I voted for Pierre Poilievre, lost, we got Carney, and 25% of what Carney's doing is what Pierre would have been doing. Maybe it's now up to 30%, because the Liberals, if they don't want another election, they can't piss off the population anymore, because the population is so pissed off from the past 10 years of Trudeau that what has happened is you've got this weird, unique situation where Carney pushes in one direction, people react, and then he goes, okay, no, we'll go the other direction. So, and there's going to be wins and losses. But one direction that we're moving in is sovereignty, which I'm all for. You should be all for. The problem is it's sovereignty in a globalized world. So what does that mean? Well, it means Stephen Harper era policies, which again, the best quality of life Canada's probably anybody in the world has ever lived under would be Stephen Harper. That's not a ringing endorsement for the man, as I said. And I hope people understand what I say when what I'm telling you is that's where the bar has been set. The Americans have never had a Stephen Harper quality of life yet. The Americans, yes, there's some areas where they've outshined everybody in the world, sure, whatever. But even that they still over across the entire board. Trump hasn't even come close. He made it about halfway. Trump made it about halfway to Stephen Harper in his first term, and then now he's just completely nuts, right? Firing off in all directions. I want to destroy Canada. I want to, take it over as a 51st state. Well, Canadians are starting to really catch on to that. That is a thing, right? So this is why you're seeing the conscript army thing. And a lot of that's going to have to do with. A lot of people think it's just about, okay, when the shit hits the fan, they're going to just turn this conscript government army on the populace, right? That's a possibility, but I think it's more about protecting the Arctic. Why? Because what is the North? If you can knock, every freighter can knock $80,000 a week off their shipping cost, and they could cut their travel time shipping by thousands of ships, travel time around the world by cutting out about 6,000 miles of sea. What is that shipping lane worth? It's worth more than anything else in the world. It'll be worth hundreds of trillions of dollars, right? So if we don't want to be taken out by Russia, China, and the United States, and look, Russia and China, they have to do something they really don't want to do, and that is side with Canada. Right? Why? Because it's like, well, if we could open up the Northwest Passage to commercial shipping, China is going to they're going to fucking dominate even more than what they are now, right? But if we're taking in fees from China and Russia and the United States and everything, that Northwest Passage might pay for every social program in Canada. And so I doubt it because of the corruption of government, but the potential is every Canadian could probably get a prosperity check of like $10 million, a year. It's going to be worth hundreds of trillions. Now, when you got ships going through, okay, well, you're going to have ports. When you got ports, you're going to have mines. When you have mines, you have more shipping. When you have more shipping of goods and services, you become a superpower overnight. Guys, I'm telling you, I don't know if it's going to happen under Carney, but he's setting the framework for the next guy, whoever it is. It's only up to the next guy to do something stupid like climate change policies to close our own businesses down. And that's what most of the climate change stuff has been about, is stopping Canada from, exceeding its potential, right? So I'm going to be covering the Northwest Passage like crazy in the next coming years for sure, because it is the one thing in the world that is there's going to be a lot of things about it. Again, how does the Canadian Navy control that? What happens when the United States wants to put flotillas through there? And we tell them, hey, you know what? The U.S. Navy can't go through there without our permission. And if you do go through, you got to pay like everybody else. You know what I mean? They're not going to like that, right? They're not going to like that, but it's our waters, right? So it's is Donald Trump going to be stupid enough to push that button and say, you know what, we're just going to go through there and there's nothing you could say about it? Well, then so is Russia and China going to try that, right, with their warships, which means you could get a hot war in the Arctic. My hunch says it happens once. After that, the next warship that goes through gets a Mark 48 torpedo in the ass. You know what I mean? Like we're going to control that. Like Canada, oh, Canada's nothing but it's not even a real country. All this stuff, and it's like, yeah, but if you get us into like Hong Kong fuck around find out mode, no, you don't want to deal with Canadians in the Arctic. If there's one place you don't want to fucking fight Canadians, it's in the Arctic. like who comes to fucking Canada to learn how to fight in the Arctic? Everybody. Why? Because we're the only ones who know how to do it. Yeah, the Americans can do it pretty well, but trust me, the Americans get more training from us in the Arctic than anybody else, right? Even the fucking Chinese. I don't know why the hell our government would. Well, Trudeau, right? I'm sure Carney will be just as bad. Like, no, we should not be fucking training the fucking Chinese in the Arctic on how to fight us, right? No, you want to learn, like, Finland knows how to fight in the Arctic, Sweden knows how to fight in the Arctic, Norway, etc., etc. They know how to fight in the Arctic. I'm sure the Greenlanders, whatever they have, they can fight in the Arctic. It's just that they don't really have much, right? But Canada is probably the number one. The Russians know how to fight in the Arctic. Yeah. All fairness, they know how to fight in the Arctic too. Yeah, so it's like again, when you look at things for what they are, not just the cheerleader of Canada's stupid, Canada bad, Canada incompetent, blah blah blah. I'm not saying we don't have problems, but I'm saying where you look at where the focus is being put, there's a reason why it's being put there. Like there's a reason why our Arctic is a top priority for us. Like people that live in the South have no idea about it, what's going on up there, and what it's really about. But once you understand just the Northwest Passage, what that can lead to, like that is Canada's, like we'll hit a status if we could get beneficial, expertise up there. The problem is the Canadian American the one tumor grafted onto the other tumor means that any mining that goes up there is going to be a hodgepodge of Canadian and American companies, right? Because Canada sold itself out to the Americans big time over the decades, which is why when Donald Trump says, "Oh, we're fucking them over," I'm like, the death of the Avro Arrow. I can't bring that up enough. When we got rid of the Avro Arrow, we made the decision that we were no longer going to, go down the route of, developing our own military and resources and manufacturing, and just in favor of everything in favor of the Americans, right? And I mean, as friends and partners, it was the nicest. Like, I mean, every country in the world was like envious of like our trade. Like everybody, like, geez, I wish we could get that kind of a deal from the Canadians, And Sweden is now like, hey, you know what? The Americans don't like the Canadians anymore. And I mean, I'm talking government to government. I'm talking people. Canadian people and American people love each other. Brothers from a different mother. I shouldn't have to explain this, but I know how it's the internet, so everybody takes things as a cheerleader, partisan one side, partisan the other side. No, it's like Donald Trump says we have to hate Canada, so we hate Canada. Canada's fucking us over. Look in the details. It's always in the details, the gray area. Never mind the left-right bullshit. That's just politics, and there's so many people still, like, again, it's hard to discern things because there's so much lying out there on all sides, right? But what I can tell you, though, is that when you look at the direction Canada is moving in, and it's not going to happen overnight, so whenever you hear the critique of policy, look at the policy. Don't look at it's not happening right away. Now, one journalist I like is Brian Lilley. I don't agree with him on everything, but I do like that he's fair. But like he says, okay, we're happy that Carney's doing this. As a conservative, I'm saying this is good, right? But it's going to take 10 years to get there. Like what are you going to do now? Well, the only thing I answered to Brian Lilley on that is like, okay, well, I understand. This is the problem the Americans have, the Canadians have, UK has. Everybody has the everything crisis going on. It's not just Canada that's fucked. There's some areas where we're a little bit more progressed than the Americans in problems, and there's some areas where the UK is worse off than Canada, and Australia is worse off than the UK, in problems. But we're all on the same globalist paradigm. we're all following the same Agenda 21, Agenda 2030 bullshit, and Internet of Things, the climate change stuff. Yeah, we're the green economy, etc. Internet of Things, as I said. The AI data centers is the only thing that's important to the build in the States. Never mind hospitals or schools or stuff like that. No. Data centers that are going to cost trillions of dollars. None of them are going to make any money at all. What's it for? Well, is it for Skynet 2.0? Is it so that Bill Gates can control the world? I don't know. When you follow it, it's like there's something they're not telling us. It's not about just so you can make better, quicker, instant videos. There's you even look at it from the commerce side of things. It's like the AI, we don't really need it. You know what I mean? Like things are functioning well enough. Like having a better bookkeeper is not really going to make that much of a difference when things are good enough, right? So all these AI data centers, what's it really about? It's about some sort of super weapon that they're trying to. But why do they need so much? You know what I mean? Some theorize that the first ones to the AI Skynet thing wins the world. I don't think so, because these things are fragile. They're very fragile. The internet thing is fragile to begin with. We're finding that we found out in 2020 how fragile supply chain 1.0 actually is, right? So the AI, no matter how symbiont you think it is not symbiont. It is programmed to do a job. That's why Grok is woke. That's why Alexa and all these AI ask a question thing. That's why they always give you a woke answer, because they're not symbiont. They're good at they're good data. They're helpful. They can be helpful, but they're not symbiont, and they're that's why they have to control it. If not, it's going to go right wing. You know what I mean? I don't know what the end game is going to be here. I don't think the Chinese are going to rule the world, because they're going to collapse long before that. But it comes on the collapse of the United States. Donald Trump is in the trying to destroy the food supply down there in the States. I can't stress that enough. Up here in Canada, we're starting to see, we've had a big slump in beef for years, and we've seen a slight increase in the beef population in Canada. But in the States, it's going down. Meanwhile, maybe that's what this deal with Argentina is about, is that, okay, yeah, there's a food shortage coming. We got to get that cattle, but it looks like the Argentinian cattle that are going to be replacing American farmers' cattle is basically supposed to go like high-end cuts to the, to restaurants and stuff like that. But maybe it's going to be like, no, we're about to run out of this, we're going to have major beef shortages by 2026, 2027. We're going to probably have, very scary, terrifying food shortages in the States by probably mid-February 2026. Guys, that's only a couple of months. That's 2 months away. 2.5 months away. That's terrifying. Absolutely fucking terrifying. And all done self-inflicted, by attacking your own farmers. Why would you do this, right? Again, listen, don't take my word for it. Listen to the farmers. The U.S. farming is in a catastrophic situation right now. It's just to what degree? To what degree? Yeah, we're talking a lot of people around the world starving to death. Obviously they're going to cut food aid to other countries before they cut their own, the Americans cut their own food supply. But if the Americans are about to starve to death while they want to steal the Northwest Passage and make Canada the 51st state and blah, 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 and all these things, it means they're gearing up for a war. So it goes currency war, trade war, shooting war, and right now we're in trade war with the United States. I think there's only like a 2% chance of an actual shooting war between Canada and the United States, but it'll either start in the Arctic or it's going to start around the Great Lakes, because this is what Trump is indicating, right? Again, you got to listen to what the man says and not just dismiss everything he says as rhetoric. A lot of it is, but you pay attention to somebody long enough, you start to see their patterns of what they're really about, right? Like, for example, when you listen to liberals talk about we hope and change and we think and we believe, it's all bullshit. Like they're just, okay, but what are they really about? What are they really trying to get? So we know Carney's really after beefing up the military. We know he's really after that. We know he's really after decoupling from the United States. We can see that. And not necessarily, yes, we're running towards China a bit. Like I say, liberals sell us out to the Chinese. The conservatives typically sell us out to the Americans, right? All that stuff, right? But that said, Carney's in the early frameworks of stuff of, like if anybody's making 90 deals in 90 days, it's Carney, not Trump. And that's not a reigning endorsement for Carney. Although that's a positive for Canada. If we can get, say, even 3 trade deals a year, that'd be amazing. Stephen Harper took us from 5 trade deals to 45 trade deals in 10 years. No other politician in the world has ever done that for their country. That is, what I mean? So if Carney's going to do, has all these things on the go, okay, well, that's fine, but what's it going to cost us? Like, for example, the Mega Rail project. I want to talk about that. I love these big infrastructure projects in a sense. Look, let's bring back Avro Aero 2.0. Oh, but it was over budget. Well, name me one fucking military program that wasn't over budget. Name me one government program in any country that doesn't go over budget. You know what I mean? But the money's being spent in your own country. It creates high-tech jobs. It creates the industry. So you might take a loss. It's kind of like the Line 5 and Line 9. Like the biggest hurdles Canada, and this is something where Carney said, and I wish he would listen to his own fucking words here, but it's like Canada can take more from itself than anybody else can. Yeah, so maybe think on that. Think on that. Okay, think of all the things you're standing in the way of. So when you have conservatives out there saying, look, Carney's talked about breaking down all the trade barriers and problems, but there hasn't been a lot of action yet. Yeah, because it's not going to happen overnight. Like, it's not now, it's 2 years, 4 years, 8 years, 10 years from now that you're really going to see the benefits. But, I mean, for example, Nova Scotia, I forget the name of the premier there. He's like, no, let's bring down the trade barriers overnight. Let's do it. Let's do it. And you know what? I get it. You can't just do it overnight because there's consequences for that. You have unions to deal with. You have, industries that can be destroyed accidentally by saturating your markets. Not necessarily that the other guys are going to outcompete you, but you saturate your market. This is the whole point of, maybe not the whole point, but a good point of supply management for our farmers. The reason why we have it is so the Americans don't just flood our markets with cheap product and put our farmers completely out of business, right? That's why it's protectionist. And this is the question of sovereignty. In order to have sovereignty, this idea of isolationism is not what you really want, but you do want protectionism to the point where, like free market capitalism doesn't just destroy your markets with foreigners. Foreign markets. This is what's happened with Chinese manufacturing. We deindustrialized, gave all the manufacturing to China, and now look at the monster we created, right? So what I'm getting at is that if we move in the right direction, it's not going to be fast. And I can't stress this enough. I get it. Everybody wants the solution in 2 minutes. Even Pierre Poilievre, if he would have won, he would not be moving any faster than Carney on anything because government runs at the speed of smell, right? So and that's considered lightning fast. But that said, like for example, the project to build a high-speed rail in Canada. Okay, we don't have the expertise. Why? Because in the 90s, one of the fallout from not finishing the Avro Air program is brain drain. We didn't incentivize the high-tech sector and the trades as much as we should have, right? And we lost all that since the 90s. Like trade schools in the 90s, like there was apprenticeship programs almost on everything. But as we deindustrialized and said, no, we're going to have a service sector economy and a tech economy. But then we took our top Canadian tech giants and sold them out to like Microsoft and stuff like that. America, again, right? And again, we lost JDS, Nortel, and Corel. You know what I mean? Like we lost all those things. They got bought out by Microsoft, right? I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but something like that. So we said, no, rather than compete with them and say, no, you're not going to dominate our tech industry. We'll just grift on to yours, and you get a benefit of having domain, complete control over the domain. And on the other hand, we don't have to go through the painstaking process of developing everything, right? So it was kind of a win-win. Although Trump calls it a major loss, but it's like, no, it's like you guys made out like fucking bandits. I mean, you get to control the market, you get to control the industry, and this is something with military procurements. Everybody just looks at the capability of the F-35. Okay, if it works as good on paper, it's the most phenomenal airplane ever. If it works as good on paper, which it doesn't. At best case scenario, it maybe works half as good as they say, and that's every military piece of equipment. It just is what it is. But that's not the main issue of it. So yes, you got Canadian, and again, you got to understand, like, a lot of it is political. So the reason why the Saab Gripen is a better deal for Canada is because we'll be more independent with it. Yes, Saab is going to manufacture the parts, we'll assemble. So in other words, it's the IKEA plane. We'll call it the IKEA fighter, right? They'll send us the parts in a box. Sit there, the fucking, you got your little instructions, get some screws out. This screw 230A 2222225 8B. Fuck. Where does it go? Yeah, so yeah, we're going to be assembling at first. But assembly turns to assembly line. Assembly line turns into production line. Production line turns into full industry, right? It takes 30 years. It takes 30 years. But you got to start the journey somewhere. And there's always a complaint when, from the opposition, doesn't matter if it's on the left, doesn't matter on the right, when the other guy's, oh, well, that's going to take too long. Therefore, we shouldn't do it because it's going to take too long. And the answer is no, we should do it because in 10 years, we'll have it. If we would have completed the Avro Arrow, we'd be on Avro Arrow Mark V now. Or Mark 6, and the Avro Arrow Mark 6 would be a 6th-gen aircraft, and it would not need any input whatsoever from anybody else in the world. And this is what the Swedes have done with their Saab Gripen, right? They actually basically ditched the General Electric engine for a new Rolls-Royce engine, which hopefully the Swedes understand that, just because the UK is friendly to you now, you have to go with the idea of basically that it can get to a point, deal with that pretty soon. It can get to a point where we're going to have to, have complete and utter autonomy on, our military equipment. We can't have the United States say, no, you can't use that here, you can't use that there, you have to use it where we tell you to. No, you can't get all, like for example, another reason why we didn't buy the Virginia class sub, okay, is you'd get the sub, you'd get a lower grade of sub, and you would have restrictions on some of the technology, you wouldn't be allowed to access it. What's the point of buying it? Where you buy the German sub, the South Korean sub, the possibly the Swedish sub if it comes into the as a contender, and you have full access to the technology, and you can share the technology back and forth with your allies. At that point, you have more autonomy. So you can't get that from the American system. The American system is not, it wants to control, and this is one of the problems that's coming up with the F-35, is it's way more expensive to fly to the point where the people that have bought it, they can only maybe keep 20 or 30% of the aircraft in the air at any one time, especially when they're in such low numbers. That's not good. I'd rather have 500 Saab Gripens, you know what I mean, than 100 F-35s, because the software is going to outrun the hardware anyway. Like, stealth isn't that, like, you can detect stealth, almost anybody can detect stealth. The hard part is locking onto it and shooting it down. But that said, these over-the-horizon radar systems that we're going to be building in Canada, hopefully sooner than later, and developing to more our needs, those things will be able to see micro drones, stealth drones coming across the tree lines. You know what I mean? Like yeah, it's going to make stuff like these radars have a potential. Again, will they work as good as advertised? But if let's say they did, they'll make submarines obsolete, drones obsolete, stealth aircraft obsolete overnight. This would be massive losses for the U.S. In sales, right? They're already losing military sales left, right, and center because of Donald Trump, right? Raytheon, our new warship, which we agreed to use the Raytheon fire control systems, may have to be switched out for either BAE or Saab, which would make sense for us to get, if we're going to go in on a system, rather than having mixed systems, other than stopgap, say, okay, well, you know what? Our warship is going to have either BAE systems in it, and we're going to just basically build like all British stuff here, okay? And then everything just works together. We don't have to, it just makes more sense. So we'll build, British Typhoons, Eurofighter Typhoons. They work with the warships, and then we'll buy British tanks or whatever. Or we go with the Swede model, and we say we're going to go with all Saab stuff. So we've got the Saab Gripen, we've got the A-26, and we'll use Saab fire control systems in our warships. And then it's all one system, right? It's just the Saab system doesn't necessarily line up with NATO, but that's just a software problem. You know what I mean? It's a big problem, but it's a software problem, right? But the idea of the sovereignty of when we make a military procurement, it's our procurement, and we got it, and like the South Koreans, they'll sell you everything, and they'll say, yeah, we'll sell you the technology. You get the full. You don't get an export model. You get the full model. This is what it's capable of. You get that. So the mid powers are aligning more, rather than. So you're going to see an isolation of superpowers like China, Russia, and the United States. The difference is China and Russia have already had that concept where they don't control every satellite nation, right, that they have around them. They basically, they do their own thing, and that's why they're sovereign, right? France, as many problems as France has, one of the things about their military is it's completely sovereign. They build their own stuff 100% in-house. They do not rely on a single import or export for their stuff, which is what the Canadian model should be. Sweden is still kind of a mixed bag. It does use U.S. technology in some of its stuff, which is now seen as a liability. Anybody using U.S. technology cannot trust the United States. Donald Trump has basically destroyed the trust of the American people, but he's also destroyed the trust of the American military alliances, because you don't know if they're going to shut off the F-35s in flight on you or not. And yes, they can do it. I don't know why people can't believe that. Oh, they can't do this. They can shut off the data link at best, and that's the whole function of the aircraft. If you're flying along and you're about to drop a bomb on something, then your data link goes off. Suddenly, you can't drop that bomb. So if they can shut off your data link, I'm sure they can shut off the engine. And down you go, right? Yeah, you won't even be able to eject out of the aircraft because it's all AI automated and stuff like that. But anyway, yeah. But last thing I want to talk about. So we see the direction Canada is moving. It's decoupling from the United States. This is going to be a 10 to 30 year decoupling. Again, with the everything crisis in Canada, the everything crisis in the United States, when you get these cheerleader channels that are trying to tell you that the Americans, Canada, even Black Pigeon Speaks, I couldn't believe he said this. I'm like, he's an intellectual guy. He should know that, sitting there going that, Canada, I get it, he hates Trudeau and whatever. As a fellow Canadian, you're preaching to the choir. But whatever, and he's not a fan of Carney, obviously. But he's obviously, blinded by bias here, because he's like, well, a lot of it, the idea of Canada joining the United States is so preposterous and so, offensive, blah, blah, blah. He goes, when there could be benefits. The benefits we would get is what I've been trying to tell people from Alberta. If you think for a second that the 51st state thing would be in your favor, it would be the worst plan Alberta could ever make. Number one, you're landlocked. right? This is a problem. And, I always hear Albertans complain about, Ottawa standing in our way, Ottawa standing in our way. Okay, yeah, but you do understand BC is more of a problem for you than Ottawa. The tanker capacity, it's not a tanker ban, it's a tanker capacity limitation. That is BC's saying that. That's why the native group, which is not an actual native group that is cutting the pipeline, voting against pipeline, is a George Soros, U.S., Saudi Arabia funded anti-Canadian production. They've been attacking, the Americans have been holding back our industries for years on these, with these NGO groups. It's well documented, Tides Foundation, all that. That's what it's about. It's about us not industrializing. Why? Because the Americans do not want the competition. For the most part, they don't have to do a lot of it, but they spend about $650 million a year on us, against our industries. The ones that they don't fully control, right? But they don't really have to spend that much because, in comparison to other countries, because the thing is that they've already got most of their, probably more than half the businesses in Canada are American, right? Because we've favored them so much, right? But that's going to go away over the next 20 to 30 years. And in 30 years, you're going to pick up stuff, and 9 out of 10 items you pick up are going to say made in Canada on it, because of the elbows up is going to lead to Maple Leaf up. We're going to become very nationalist. This is something that Carney fucked up on, where Trudeau spent 10 years being post-national in Canada, and Carney was stupid enough to get Canadian Pride, even if it's a bit of a commercialized Tim Hortons cringe, normie elbows up. But look, elbows up, okay, is what leads to stuff like the trucker convoy and stuff like that. But anyway, the point I'm making is Alberta is landlocked, right? And if the Northwest Territories say you can't get your oil out, and if Saskatchewan says you can't go through us to get your oil out, the only way to get the oil out of the Alberta is through the United States if BC says no, right? Now you say, yeah, but if we become a part of the States, everything will be fine. No, the only thing that happens is all those high-paying Alberta oil jobs, right, go to foreign workers. That's it. It's already a problem already, but that's all that's going to happen is why? Because H-1Bs will be flooding in there faster. You'll lose all your unions. You'll lose, again, just look at the American system. It does not favor the worker. It never did, never will. They only pay people as much as they can get away with. And they're constantly, and again, this is a problem everywhere, not just in the States. But the Americans are, they're on average, they have higher wages per capita because of the people at the top get a lot more money, and it raises the overall wage. But if you were to look at it, break down by category, no, the lower rung of your society makes way less than, like, your minimum wage is about half of ours. You know what I mean? So no, Americans are not economically better off than Canadians, not even close. It's just you have more wealth in the country at the top end. But your middle class is completely getting destroyed, right? Same thing is happening here in Canada. But no, the idea of Alberta becoming a part of the, I get it, they're mad at Ottawa or whatever. And I'm not saying there's no justification for it, but what I'm saying is the grass is greener on the other side, but it's still rotten grass. You know what I mean? No, if there's a country you do not want to become a part of right now, it's the United States. 38 trillion reasons why, maybe 40 trillion reasons why you don't want to be, it would be horrible. We're bad enough with like a $1.5 trillion deficit. That's per capita, that's ridiculous enough. But we're nowhere near over budget as the Americans are. Like us right now, we're bad. We're really bad off. But like right now, we're $78 billion over budget is what's forecasted if they can keep within that. If we're lucky, Carney's over budgeted so that, at the end of the year, maybe we're only $45 billion over budget, which is bad, right? And $200 billion of our budget which is almost like a third of the budget, is going to just servicing the debt, right? The Americans, they're at a point where they almost can't service the debt. Yeah, it's terrifying. It's terrifying. So we have to look at these things, right, for what they are. It's not, okay, I like Carney over Trump. No, if Carney was running against Trump, unfortunately, I'd have to vote for Carney. Again, reluctantly, knowing what I know now. If I was in the States and Carney was running against Trump, I probably would have voted for Trump. But knowing what we know now, voting for Trump would have been, the man's going to kill so many people through starvation with these bad fucking firing off in all directions. Like, he's attacking the potash. Something the Americans can't get anywhere else for cheaper, of the very limited places in the world you can buy that kind of levels of potash. 80% of farms that use potash are buying it from us. And you can't just open a potash mine in the States. They don't have any. It's unobtainium. You just don't have it. And you're telling me Trump doesn't know this? People would have told him. But this guy has tariffs on bananas from Argentina and stuff like that. And it's like, well, you can't grow bananas in the States, per se. So it's like, why are you tariffing stuff that you can't even get? You know what I mean? Like, he just did blanket tariffs on everything. Just destroy the entire economy, right? You want to devalue the U.S. currency? Okay, yeah, that's something he's always talked about. Less purchasing power for the U.S. currency for people. Okay, fine, whatever. But what I'm getting at too is just like the Americans are on the way down. It's just they have the furthest way to fall. So yes, it might take this collapse and bleed out. It's starting to gush now. It's no longer the 2008, slow bleed out. There's a bit of a quickening here. So there's no indication that Trump is like going after the deep state or going to audit the Federal Reserve or what. He's not going to. He's all in on it with Microsoft and Pfizer and Monsanto, all the Bill Gates stuff. He's all in on it, all the Goldman Sachs stuff, modern monetary theory, you name it, print to the moon. He's all for that. His own words, his own actions. Now, Carney is a little different because, yes, the nation-building projects such as this high-speed train, I want us to go through with it. I really do. Why? Because it's an infrastructure that, okay, we don't have the expertise to build this thing. We do not. We might have to go to Spain. We might have to go to Japan and get some of their, top, like, here's how you build a rail system, right? All these other countries that have built these high-speed rail systems. But the idea, is it a program that I think we should prioritize? No, I'd rather see the icebreakers before we see this. But a high-speed trail from Trois-Rivières through to Montreal, through to Ottawa, through to Toronto, to get you from Ottawa to Toronto, or from Montreal to Toronto in 3 hours, that is really cool. That would be creating a lot of engineering jobs. That would be creating a lot of maintenance jobs, public works. I'd rather get people out of office buildings and put them on public works. Yes, SNC Lavalin rebranded is going to be in on this. Again, the corruption is there. It is what it is. You know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. We have to start holding more accountability. But like, we need to build, like, for example, a new Concorde. We need to build these things. But we need to build them here 100%. And that is the thing where Carney hasn't really done that yet, where he's like, it's all about partnerships. Okay, partnerships are great. It's a step in the right direction. But we need, within 10 years, to be 100% sovereign, like Russia, China, France, like the French military system. We need to be industrialized the way the Germans were, stuff like that. And we could do it with a green economy if they really want. The carbon capture thing. The more I research it, I'm like, okay, well, there is benefits to it, but if it works as good as planned, but does it work as good as planned? Because we don't know, right? So we got to actually do some, before we threw hundreds of billions of dollars on these mega projects as another green scam. I'd rather get rid of cap and trade. It's an absolute scam. Most of the green projects are scams, the wind and the solar. Okay, well, if if Nova Scotia and Denmark want to work on that, wind farms and stuff like that. Okay, I really don't like the wind farms. They're ugly. I don't like the solar farms. They're ugly. But I'm not against the technology. Okay, maybe we find a way to solve the blowing up, the overpriced, low return on investment, or no return on investment wind and solar. Like, you lose money on it. You don't. But maybe if we can get a greener grid with better components and find a way to recycle these damn things, that's the problem. We build them, we can't get rid of them, right? Solar panels are very toxic to get rid of. Maybe we need to put our emphasis there. The battery technology that we're working on with Finland. Maybe we finally solve the Tesla barbecue problem. You know what I mean? Where you're just driving your Tesla and it just fucking battery blows up and you're incinerated inside in 5 seconds at 4,000 degrees. Maybe we find, like, the Japanese were closing in on that with Toyota, with getting batteries that don't explode. They're, the problem is these reliable batteries, they don't have the capacity, right? So they haven't solved that problem yet. We have to invest to do that. Okay, I'm all for the high tech stuff. Maybe we need to build our own data centers and not bring in Microsoft, right? But you have to begin these industries somewhere. And not only do you have to start these industries somewhere, you have to operate. You're not going to make return on investment right away. But the high-speed rail could make return on investment. Now, can you imagine having, say, 2 to 8 high-speed rails across the entire country? Winnipeg in 4 hours. You know what I mean? Like, that would be, mind you, you'd have to have like some sort of hyperloop to do that. But you get the idea. Can you imagine? Okay, you're in Gander, Newfoundland, okay? You get on a train and you're going to Victoria Island and you're there in 11 or 12 hours, on this Hyperloop train. Now, it'd cost a lot. And again, like, the energy we're going to need nuclear power, obviously, to power the train system. Or we're going to have to get rid of a lot of people out of the country that we don't need, right? Such as, all these migrants that we just don't need, and temporary foreign workers and stuff like that. We got to get rid of those people, right? So that we, get rid of the welfare so we can fund these projects. These micro nuclear reactors that we're building in Ontario, this is a part of this, mega project thing that Carney's got. And I don't know if they've already started it yet, but I'm not a big fan of nuclear power. Like, I understand hydroelectric is the best, but you don't have it everywhere. But not everybody has that access to waterways. The thing about hydroelectric, it's just the cleanest energy on the planet, bar none. The problem with nuclear is meltdowns, right? It's not a matter of if, it's just when. Even the most top quality nuclear power plants are vulnerable to earthquakes and all kinds of stuff like that, and meltdowns. We don't want another Fukushima, you know what I mean? Or 3 Mile Island, or Chernobyl, or, every time a reactor melts down, it's like it destroys the planet to a degree. But this high-speed train thing, people on the right hate it just because it's a liberal idea. The concept, the technology, obviously, high-speed trains. Our train and rail system, unfortunately, was sold out to Warren Buffett rather than keeping it in the national interest. I think anything like that, critical infrastructure like that, should be, it might have to operate at a bit of a loss, but it's to the benefit of commerce. Like, I mean, what is a double-decker train worth in value? You know what I mean? Like, when you see those things going through Saskatchewan and stuff like that, where you got like a rail car on top of a rail car, like the bridges in Saskatchewan, the train bridges in Saskatchewan, like twice the height of a normal train bridge because of these double rail cars. If you've ever seen them, it's the most bizarre thing to see. I'm always like, how did these things not blow over on the prairies like that? With like, you're talking 53-foot cars, double the height. Like, how do they get? You know what I mean? But think of 25 cars stacked too high. That's 50 rail cars. Like, how much product is in that? You know what I mean? So if you have to operate the train at a loss, the economy's making more than making up for it in commerce, right? So high-speed travel, that could be a major, major win for Canada, but it'd be like a 50-year long project to go from one end of the country to the other. So when do we start? Okay, we can spend this much on it every year. We got to stay in a budget, spend this much on this program every year. So, yeah. So we'll see where that goes. But it's, like I say, Carney is moving away from the welfare state into the more into the infrastructure state, right? So that's a major step. Stephen Harper, he was fairly infrastructure minded, but not to the way that we see Carney. Harper was more like, okay, we'll just buy what we need from the Americans. Basically, that was Harper's kind of solution to everything. Carney's solution is, okay, we're going to build it. And then, of course, the criticism, oh, well, it costs too much and blah, blah, blah. And that's always the critique. Oh, well, yeah, but it's going to take 10 years and whatever. Yeah, but in 10 years goes by fast, guys. If we would have, like fast tracking projects, that's something Pierre Poilievre was talking about. That's what Carney's doing. Okay, but you'll get a rejection on a lot of projects if they don't meet a certain criteria. Fine, but when it's go, it's go. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, yeah, get the fucking shovels in the ground. You know what I mean? But you have to. What Carney is saying, and this I would agree with. I don't like the man. It doesn't have anything to do with whether I like him, but it's like, you give us the proposal. We'll see if it's viable. If it's viable, we can do it right away. And not every, like, for example, like, again, this is the problem with the politics and the lying and the opposition for the sake of opposition is like with the pipelines. Many of the pipelines, it's not a question of whether we need them or not. It's that the pipeline builders are saying there's no profit in building these things. So either the government bankrolls this pipeline or we're not going to build it because we're not going to make any money off of it, right? And they don't tell you that. They just say, oh, well, liberals bad. Like, for example, bypassing line 5 and line 9 probably won't be that profitable, but it would be more independence for our country. We could at least bypass the United States if the trade wars get bad. Doug Ford has understood this with the grid. Okay, well, we got to start putting more power substations on our side of the fence so that if we ever have to cut the United States off, or the United States decides to pull its own plug, at least we won't be affected. You know what I mean? And we should have done that right from day one. But no, because the Americans were our best friends, we never thought they would, betray us like this. We never even considered that, to untangle the system. You know what I mean? Like, it was never considered. But now it's like, okay, they're going to destroy our auto workers union. They're trying to destroy our aluminum industry and stuff like that. They want to steal the Arctic from us. They want to steal the Great Lakes from us. And make us the 51st thing. And it's like, this is completely overwhelming for most Canadians. They don't understand it. It's like, where did this come from? This is not years of building tension of thing, like that you saw coming. The softwood lumber thing, okay, that's been going on since before I was born, and it'll be going on probably long after I die. But the Americans still need our lumber. There's a lot of American industries that don't like that. But we have better lumber because there's something about growing trees in minus 40 that makes them better. You know what I mean? They're tougher trees. Look, this is not new for Canada. There's a small town called Ladysmith. It's about half an hour, 45 minutes from here, whatever. Hundreds of years ago, the British Empire, there was a German settlement up there, but what they did is they got all their ship masts from this little area in my area. Because the way the winds went through there, these ship masts were tougher than any other trees around the world, and that's why they used ours. And it's these real gigantic tall pines that are there, and it's still there to these what's called tree farms are still there to this day. But it's just interesting history, right? So it's kind of, sometimes it's not a matter of the almighty dollar and who can sell the cheapest stuff from the lowest bidder for everyday low prices. Sometimes it is just about quality. You just need the better product. You know what I mean? Like you can't build submarines out of shitty steel. What was the name of that submarine that sunk there? The homemade submarine there. The guy was using fucking, video game controllers in it. What the hell was what was the name of that thing? Anyway, yeah, you know what I mean. Like it's not about the cheapest stuff. You got to build good stuff. So Canada is moving in that direction in a lot of industries with the backdrop of the everything crisis going on. So we're spending a lot of money, like $45 billion out of that $240 billion, because out of that $240 billion of new spending, 200 of it is servicing the debt. Now you'd say that's not great. And I would say that is a step in the right direction. It's not great because we're in that problem that we are $78 billion going to be over budget at minimum, right? But at best, we come in under that. And then if you follow Carney's budget for the next 4 years, but in 4 years, we're only like, say, 30 or 40 billion over budget, right? Which means 200 billion a year servicing our debt. In 10 years, when we balance the debt, we're going to be possibly paying. Remember, Stephen Harper balanced the budget with the largest. Like Stephen Harper made our government big. It was the biggest the Canadian government had ever grown to until we got Trudeau, right? But Stephen Harper, with as large as the Canadian government was, balanced the budget. Now, had he kept doing austerity, even light austerity through, people retiring and just not hiring new people, could have lowered the taxes through that, right? Like this idea of tax breaks, you can't give tax breaks until you balance your budget, right? So if Carney balances the budget in 10 years, or whoever follows suit balances the budget within the 10 years, once we have a balanced budget, we have a future. Then you can have any social program you want, but you have to have a way to pay for it. And that's what everybody is saying. That's what every country needs to do. So anyway, that's where we're at. It is interesting. Again, I know a lot of people like the more dramatic, everything this guy does is wrong. Everything this guy does is perfect, blah, blah, blah. I don't really operate in that. I'm saying, look at the wins and losses. Every country is in crisis mode right now. We have a mass immigration crisis, which is, just getting rid of that would get rid of so many problems. The overcrowding in the hospitals, the overcrowding in the schools, the overcrowding, the housing, and the driving of wages going down because of the cheap foreign labor. It doesn't matter if it's a conservative government or a left-wing government. They all seem to hate their populace to the point where they want to undercut the labor. The populace, you pick a country, every country is mad about this, right? Nobody wants any more immigrants. We don't need them. There's no use to them. We don't need the temporary foreign workers. No, Donald Trump is wrong. Americans can be trained up for these industries. It just might take a minute. You know what I mean? It might take a cycle, a schooling cycle. So all these globalist types, like globalism, is going to switch to pocket nationalism in many countries, as I was saying. I've been saying, for a good while, because it's the only way to survive. Like, again, if every time Carney pivots, he pivots towards a Pierre Poilievre style policy or Stephen Harper style policy because it's the only way to survive politically, that's a win for Canadians. It'll be a losses for the Americans unless it's something that's mutually beneficial. But right now, the Americans are just in loss mode. They're not gaining businesses, they're losing businesses. These are the numbers. These are, you'll get the cheerleaders out there. Oh, well, look, such and such has opened up their corporation here, blah, blah, blah. And oh, look at all this great stuff. Yeah, but you lost 10 businesses to get that one. That's what I'm telling you guys. Trump is just lying and lying. Carney lies too, don't get me wrong. If there's a politician out there, if their lips are moving, they're lying. You know what I mean? Without exception. They're all bad. They're all bad. It's just one thing for Carney is he's trying to build his own empire, right? He's pandering to his portfolio and his buddies. So is Trump. It's just Trump doesn't know what he's doing. Again, is the economist going to outrun the banker? I don't know. Or is the banker going to outrun the economist? Between Harper and Carney. It's a nice race to have to see who's going to outdo who. If Stephen Harper is the benchmark for countries to beat, if you make it above Stephen Harper's status in quality of life for Canadians, it's the best quality of life human beings will have ever had in human history overall, even if not everything is perfect. You know what I mean? So I'm, again, I want Carney to do better. There's so much I disagree with the man on the, like, especially on the culture war stuff and, the anti-white stuff and all that. Sure, but he's not like Trudeau completely brainwashed into it, where I don't think he really cares about it one way or the other, because it seems like, okay, he's already purged the radicals out of his cabinet twice, right? He's trying to find a way to do it, to bring liberalism back to liberalism, not progressive communism insanity like we had under Trudeau. And it's not because he cares about anybody. It's because it's bad for business. Woke is bad for business. And, because, like, you take all these woke companies, yes, they get steamrolled billions of dollars to keep the woke going, but they don't make any money. You can only bankroll this stuff so long until everything just fucking collapses, right? And that's the problem with the radical left, is that they're fucking a tumor in everything, to the point where every business is suffering. Well, there goes my roof. I guess I don't have to use the roof rake on that side. There you go. Get it going on this side. Yeah. The snow's off the roof now. Nice. But what I'm also saying to you is that, okay, we're not out of the waters. The Canadian economy has to outrun the collapse of the United States, which is a mission almost like impossible. And I know there's a lot of people, my subscribers, don't believe a word I'm saying. They're like, Reg, you're just misguided. You're not looking at all the facts. And trust me, I listen to the left, I listen to the right, I listen to the center. I look at the data. Guys, I probably mentioned things, you've never even thought about at all. Again, like the Nordic alliances and stuff like that. These things are newer partnerships. It's not what are they right now. It's what are they going to be in 10 years? I have a hunch Canada and Sweden are about to merge as countries in the next 30 years if we keep doing what we're doing. Maybe Iceland will say, hey, Canada, take us over, annex us. Greenland will probably say, hey, well, we might as well become a part of the Canadian superstate. Like Canada is the only country in the world that's had countries beg for it to annex it, right? Turks and Caicos, right? Every couple of years they make a picture. Okay, Canada, we need to be conquered by somebody, and we chose you. How about you come to our island and we will be no resistance whatsoever, and you could have an island, and you will be in the sun, and you will be part of you. We'll use your dollar. Yeah. Welcome. Come on down. Bring your boatloads of money. Well, take us over. Yeah, you could have a government. It's like, yeah. Turks and Caicos, they've been begging for us to annex them. They're like, no, we're not going to annex you. Thanks, but no thanks. We kindly decline on taking you over. Like, imagine that. Eh? Okay, we live in a world where our prime minister has to tell one country, sorry, we can't take you over because we love the offer. We love the fact that you're going to let us just, completely take you over, but we can't do it because it just wouldn't be right. And on the other hand, no, that's fine. Canada is not for sale. We're not going to become the 51st state. And on the worst part is, sorry, Greenland, we have to end our 50-year war over that island. I know I'm going to miss the whiskey war too, but, it's we're a little tapped for cash right now. But maybe we can have a war again in the future over this island, and then you bring your best Scotch, we'll bring our best Canadian whiskey, and we'll swap flags like we've been doing for 50 years. You can say it's your island, we'll say no, it's our island, and like that, and then you enjoy your whiskey. Maybe leave a box of cigars or something. I can't believe. Of course, Trudeau fucking ended that war. That cocksucker. That was the best war in human history, the whiskey war. And I mean, Greenland liked it too. Everybody loved it. It was just it was so comical. Here's this island in the middle of the Arctic. Really, it's a rock. We'll put our flag on it, leave a bottle of whiskey. You come, you steal our bottle of whiskey, put your flag and leave a bottle of whiskey. And we'll pull your flag out and grab the bottle of whiskey. And it was I'm sure hundreds of millions of dollars to do this, but it's on the route of the Arctic Patrol anyway, so it's yeah, and he had to end that war. I hate Trudeau. I hate him so much. But yeah. So I guess other things that I'm following, it's the AI stuff, again, we'll see where that, I really think there's a dark thing coming with that, but I don't think it's going to work the way the world elites want. Why? Because the digital world, I think we're about to see a stepping away of technology where people are just going to start reading books rather than be surfing the internet all the time. I think we're coming to that point where people realize, we have to go out and get community again. Meet in the room. I'm not saying the internet's going to go away. What I'm saying is just like in the late 90s, early 2000s, people went on the internet to check their Facebook, to check their email, and that's it. I mean, I used to check my email once a week, and that was it. Right? It wasn't reliant on it, right? I checked my Facebook once a day at work, and that was it. Being on the internet 24/7 is just not good for anybody, right? Video games, same thing. There's a craving, and I see it amongst the younger generation more than where they really want to get out in the real world and just be with people. It's just they're not there yet. They don't know how to do it, right? We've kind of lost the social. We lost the social formula. How to just make friends, how to do things, right? We've kind of lost that to a degree. I mean, it's still there. I mean, the people that are outgoing and outside and stuff, this is not a problem for them. There's still people that don't spend all day on the internet. But the problem is the younger generation is so addicted to technology. This is but it's so hollow and vacant that this is what's leading to so much mental health issues and stuff like that. But we're also seeing a situation where people they just don't want to be a part of that anymore. Everything online is just toxic. You know what I mean? So again, the dying internet is going to be probably a thing starting in, I think, more in 2027. It's okay, well, you can't speak online anyway because everything's just censorship, right? This is what a lot of the AI data centers are going to be doing, is just censoring everybody. I mean, you're already seeing the AI take over. Once you start removing humans out of the AI stuff, people are going to move away from the they're going to it's okay, yeah, here's another AI movie, yes, with perfect actors and actresses in it. Okay, fine. You might watch a few, but after a while, you're just going to be it's just it just no. You know what I mean? I'm not saying you can't have fun with it. I mean, I'm having fun with it, sure, but it's I still rather see real human beings and all that. It's because as soon as you see something, and it's getting hard to tell what's real and what's not real. I've already seen the gorilla, the guy's in front of the gorilla cage and he tries to lift a heavy weight and the gorilla just lifts it. Yeah, and they think, some people think that's real. I get that. Some people think that's real. Or these sea creatures and stuff it's really fascinating, but it's it looks so real, but it's not real. It's just not real. But the thing is maybe when it does become real, we won't be able to discern whether it is or isn't. But if it gets to that point, one of the benefits is the people that will just naturally cut themselves and wean themselves off the internet. One of the things is they're just going to well, I'm just going to go out and visit my friend. We're going to go do shit. Kind of like 1990 style. That's why us Gen Xers, had the best quality of life in the world socially, because unlike the boomers were mostly grew up on farms and stuff like that, And yeah, they had community and stuff like that, and they had friends, whatever. But like in the 1990s, 80s, and 90s with Gen X, like our loners hung out in packs of 40. You know what I mean? Those were the loners. You know what I mean? Nobody was depressed hardly at all because everybody was always social. Everything Gen X did in their 20s was a social event. Oh, you're gonna go out? Okay, it's like you go to the bar, you're gonna run into 3 or 4 friends. If you were going to college, you had 1,000 friends around you every week. Like it was a bizarrely cool time. It was so social. And I think, the last time we probably had that kind of sociability was probably thousands of years ago, right? Where people, like, say, would meet at the Colosseum or something, like, thousands of years ago. Where it's like, okay, or, it's like, okay, we're, people just living in the moment during a Viking raid or something, But it probably wasn't the healthiest thing. But no, like, like going to concerts, no cell phones, just, using lighters instead of cell phones, stage dive. Like, it's just, those days are gone right now, but I think there's going to be a resurgence of it, of a new renaissance amongst a decaying, chaotic world in the everything crisis. So, like, the people, like, if you look at the people that are suffering the most mentally, okay, and there's a lot, it's like 1 in 4 people that are not doing well, right? That are, that's the statistic, right? And you look at their lifestyles versus the people that are just tickety-boo going on fine. The recurring theme, family, nation, future, family, nation, future. The people that are not on drugs and alcohol, includes marijuana. Look, as soon as we legalize marijuana here in Canada, we've seen the suicide rates, the depression rates go through the roof. Why? Because it's a depressant. If you don't need it, don't take it. I don't care if it's natural, whatever. It's still not good for you. But what we also noticed was that the people that are moving away from that, searching out new communities, particularly you see it on the right, the breakaway nation stuff is going to be more on the right. It's going to be more tribal. But the people that have become more tribal are starting to find more connections. Again, but we have to build from the ground up because it's been, one thing about the nuclear family is a lot of people say, oh, we need to return to the nuclear family. And I keep saying, no, the nuclear family was already the deterioration. We need to go back to the extended family. That's where your community is going to be found, and that's where you're going to get a stronger nation, is through that kind of tribalism. But we have to do this in a dying globalistic world while it's morphing into something else, right? So the future is going to be very dystopic for a lot of people. It already is. If you want to function in the Agenda 2030 world, past 2030, 2035, you're going to have a digital ID, a biometric chip, maybe you get to live on basic universal income. If you want to live in a major city, if you want to be able to travel from one city block to the other city block, like in China, you'll have to have a social credit score that allows you to do this. If you upset the social system, you can't use a bus. You can't. Again, just look at the social credit score system in China. This is what this was brought in from China, from the West to China, as China's the test model, right? This is what our world elites just absolutely love. They would love to be able to control you from cradle to grave like that. I don't know why people need that kind of control over each other, but it's just a thing in human history that we keep coming up against, whether it's ruling elites or whatever. It's just there's people that are just nuts, right? And that's always going to be a thing. But that said, those that don't want to go along with that are going to find a way to live around the system, even if they have to completely, cut it out like a cancer. And, at that point, you're going to have to go live in the wastelands, right? Which might be the ultimate freedom. It might be, like, we either get Minority Report, 1984. Somebody asked me, yes, I have read 1984. Yes, I have seen the movie. Ant Farm, 1984, Clockwork Orange, what do you call it? Brave New World. Yeah. Everybody knows about them. I couldn't believe it, but I saw 1984 at the school. Mind you, there's again, guys, I cleaned the school, for example, okay? And I helped my buddy, and I cleaned the school. And I'm looking at what's on the walls. I'm looking at the messages that are given to the kids. Obviously, there's woke stuff in the schools. It's not as bad at this school, but it's there. It's like there's there's all these little sayings on the walls, positive stuff, and you're worth it, and bang, you can do this, you got this, blah blah. Okay, yeah, fine, yeah, put kids in positivity. But then there's some like subtle S.J. Douglas stuff here, a pride flag there and stuff like that. But again, I'm walking along in the history class, I'm cleaning up, and I'm like, what are they learning? And I'm looking at all the stuff they're learning, and I'm seeing they got this beautiful picture of like from the French Indian War of. Anyway, I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow, they're going to actually teach the kids about that. That's great. They need to know about their colonial past, but in a good way. Like they need to understand what it was. Now that said, it depends on the teacher if they're going to be able to deliver Canadian history to the kids in such a manner that it's not just woke, right? Because that's not teaching kids history. That's just brainwashing kids to feel bad about themselves, and it's not necessarily. And a lot of people don't realize this. If you have a Native kid and a old stock Canadian kid sitting in a classroom, and you're learning woke history about colonialism, it is going to destroy the self-esteem of the Native kid, telling them that you're a victim, everybody's hurt you, everybody hates you because you're brown, blah, 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 whatever. And you're telling the other kid, well, you have generational guilt because your ancestors may have done something that we disapprove of, not judging the world for the backdrop of the time, but because colonialism is bad, even though in a world of, anywhere you look down the world 500 years ago, colonialism was probably the nicest of the lot, right? And you'd say, oh, how dare you say that, you racist bigot, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, in comparison to what? What the Berber pirates? What the, what the Mongolian invasions? The Turkish the Ottoman Empire invasions? Like in comparison to what? Did the Ottoman Empire, Vlad the Impaler, when you learn about him, it's like, okay, the man put 20,000 people on pikes, as a deterrent, as a fence. It's like they didn't need to build a fence. They just needed to show that these people were not putting up with any shit. To the point where a much larger Muslim military was scared to invade Vlad's territory because it's like, this man is not very nice. And the conversation went something along of, I can respect your empire. Perhaps we won't invade. Like something like that. Kind of like, this guy's nuts. But he understood. You fight fire with fire while throwing gasoline on that fire in hell. Like you make sure that they know that if you're going to come here, we are going to do really mean things. We're going to put you on a pike, which will take about 2 days to travel through your system and come out your mouth. That is going to be the most horrific way to fucking die, right? Right. So then, okay, well, colonialism, suddenly not so bad. It's suddenly not so bad, right? Yeah. So no, you have to say backdrop of the time. It was territorial, it was tribal, and people, made deals and alliances. The French Indian War is like natives making alliance with Europeans, Europeans making alliance with natives, natives fighting other natives, natives fighting against Europeans. The Iron Federation, Métis fighting against natives and colonialists, French and English. France and England, a brothers' war, landing in the middle of a bunch of tribal wars. Well, the Dutch were trying to play both sides, and the Americans were trying to entice us into their war, into their civil war, right? So there was a whole bunch of shit going on. None of it nice, right? So when we look at the modern era, I know I go off on a bit of a tangent here, but again, the children are seeing all this chaos, and I wonder how many of them actually just believe it willy-nilly because it's the world they just grew up in, and how many are going to short circuit on the wiring because it's like things don't make sense, I'm hopeful for the younger generation. I am, because I think that the system has gone so crazy, and I think a good example of this. And you have to understand, okay, Nick Fuentes is 26-year-old. Love him, hate him, whatever. But his busting through the reality of the boomer mindset of Piers Morgan. Now, Piers Morgan is the most disingenuous human being. These people, yeah, they're the gotcha journalism and whatever, and it's so full of bullshit, right? And the thing is that just really ripped the Band-Aid off of your old arguments, your old world way of thinking, whether you actually truly believe in that mindset or not is dying. It's like the younger generation doesn't believe it. They can see the forest for the trees. And no, it's not going to be the millennials. No, it's not going to be us Gen Xers. No, it's not going to be the boomers that are going to save the system. It's not even going to be Gen Z. It's going to be Gen Alpha and Gen Beta. They're the ones that are going to reset the system because they're going to be the most victimized by it. Why? Because in order to live in this AI, transhumanistic, Great Reset, Klaus Schwab type of world, George Soros, Klaus Schwab type of world, is going to be so small factions of cities to be able to run that. It's just you can't run it, which means the rest of the world's going to have to fend for itself. Hence why the right-hand path people, the new humans as I call them, because their brains are rewiring, they're going to look just like normal humans today, whatever. But I've already spotted them. They can't be subverted. The downside is they might become really hyper-paranoid and completely divergent to everything just because the system is so out to get you that you become naturally paranoid. And that's going to be generational, right? And the thing is the problem is that when your brain becomes divergent, it can go one or two ways, where you double down in the insanity, right? And this is what you see on the progressive left, where it doesn't matter how contradictory it is, they have to support it no matter what, because if not, they'll have a little mental meltdown to the point where you just see these people screeching. They're just screeching at the air. They're screeching at the sky. Because if something even remotely tells them something that doesn't fit with their worldview, they just go into these like crazed-eyed screeching mode. Okay? That is a dying person. That is a person that has no mental capacity to think. That is a person that when you see this, that's a genetic dead end. That person's brain it's as far as it's going to go. If they're lucky, they might be able to come out of the ether a bit and move away from woke. It is a spectrum, but I think once they're that far gone, they're basically walking dead. Most of them are not going to breed anyway. I think that's just nature's calling of the herd. The problem is it's very sad because a lot of these people you may know, you may love them, they may be family members, whatever, and they have no mental capacity to learn new things or whatever. And I think a lot of our world elites are made up of psychopaths. I think most people on the left and right would agree with this, but what they don't realize is that most of the progressive ideology comes from them. This Frankfurt School of Thought stuff, which is started Frankfurt School of Thought, now it's critical race theory, but it all spends back to this, which goes back to Antifa, it goes back to the original Antifa and stuff like that. And it's this academic, heavily Jewish-run academic line that has infected populations around the world with progressivism. First it was communism, now it's called progressivism, which is made up of just about whatever works for the world elites, right? And the thing is that system is dying because it's not sustainable, and that's the whole thing, sustainability. The world is self-sustaining. It's self-sustaining. It's not a dying world, not even by close. The Arctic is not dying. The boreal forests are not dying. The deserts are not dying. Nothing is dying. It's just, how does it sustain itself? Mother Nature works its way out however it wants. Humans, look, Neanderthals, we still don't know why they disappeared. My hunch is that we're them. That Europeans just basically bred them out. That's my best guess. The only other thing is that they hit a genetic dead end and went sterile. That makes more sense too, because that's where you get this overnight disappearance. I think we're about to see that again over the next, say, 10,000 years or 1,000 years or whatever. Maybe it happens a little faster. I don't think we're going to live long enough to get taken out by the AI. I don't think we're going to live long enough to become the the transhumanists that the world leaders want. I just don't. We're never going to hit the singularity. We're going to die out before that, and a new type of human is going to take over. And this human is going to have a different capacity of the brain, and we're seeing it. It's in. I mean, this is going to take, like, it'll be 1,000 years before people look back at the data and say, yes, this guy figured it out. He saw it. You could see it as clear as day. And this is why some people, you just can't seem to subvert them. Like, it doesn't matter how much woke propaganda or lying you put in front of them. Once their brain gets on a path of right-hand path of truth and looking, even against their own interest, looking for, stuff that's real, you develop new abilities in your brain. And this is something that a lot of people haven't figured out yet, that this is what's happening. And because of that, we have to live through the chaos, and the only way out is through. So we have to live through the corrupt system. There are some people that just are so sick of the corruption that their brains have rewired to reject corruption. There's some people so sick of woke that their brains have just rewired to completely, just reject the toxicity of woke to the point where they're going back to natural family, nation, future values, right? Right-hand path. Survivalism, which that's what it breeds, is survivalism. And survivalism in the modern age cannot be based upon inflation of population, of money, of food supplies, or anything. It has to be based upon basically production and the skill of survival. Meaning you have to make decisions that are not necessarily easy. It's not saying right-wingers versus left-wingers. It's right-hand path versus nihilistic left-hand path. The right-hand people may not necessarily go technologically advanced. Nikola Tesla, I think, summed it up the best by saying, if progress didn't necessarily pertain to benefits, prove to be beneficial, progress is not necessarily a beneficial thing. So in other words, we may have to, and there's prophecies, Celtic prophecies that, ancient Celtic prophecies that prophesize people moving back to a more natural state of the land, whatever. So we could see like Amish 2.0, but with modern technology, a little bit of AI, a little bit of this, but everything beneficial for the colony, which will be tribal, in tribe, not out tribe. And this is going to come on the collapse of, again, when we start to see the starvation take place in the United States, which is almost guaranteed now, if at best it's just higher food prices and more importing of foreign beef and stuff like that, so you can feed the population. But my hunch is you can't take from one country, like if Argentina decides to sell all its cattle to the United States, then the Argentinians will starve. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, well, what did the bailout of Argentina, what's that going to cost Argentina? Either they win or they go to revolution and overthrow the government. We'll see. Because if the deal was, okay, Argentina, we're going to fuck over our own beef farmers by bringing in more beef cattle. But the reason why we're doing it is because we couldn't produce enough beef in the United States and our population is about to starve. China's already out ahead of this with buying and stockpiling, and limiting exports of rice and stuff to other nations. They started this in 2020. Said, whoa, we have the biggest population in the world next to India. India doesn't care about feeding its people because they're already starving. Half of them are already starving anyway. It's one of the poorest nations on the planet. In a lot of ways, just because there's so many people. But China, it's like, well, we have we are the world's manufacturer. We're the number 2 economy in the world. We don't feed our population, we get overthrown, and that's the end of China. You know what I mean? And that's exactly what's going to happen. Because China cannot produce enough food to feed itself, right? The one-child policy is going to cut the Chinese population in half, while the Indian population is still growing. So India is just going to grow itself into starvation. China is basically can't feed itself, neither can India, per se, without lots of inputs from, and same with Africa. Africa is the number 1 growing continent people-wise, but the problem is the Africans can't feed themselves. It's not even because the Africans don't have the land to do it. It's the Africans just don't have the the fortitude and they have the technology given to them, but they just seem to not have the ability to operate the technology to the point where they could feed not only themselves but the entire world. Africa could be the biggest bread basket ever. It's just you give technology to the Africans, they just let it dilapidate, whether it's running water, whether it's wells. Example, there was a guy, a YouTuber, trying to disprove, anybody that says African nations aren't advanced, it's just because colonialism kept them down, blah, 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 and I'll build a well in this community. You'll see they'll prosper. A goat fell in the well, okay, and the Africans went back to drinking the dirty river water rather than just pull the dead goat out of the well. The guy went and visited. Again, you can't make this up. This is what you're dealing with. It's like they go, well, why did you pull the goat out of the well? Oh, we never thought of that. That is a great idea. Usama, grab the goat, pull him out of the way. Yeah, we will drink the water again. If you ever saw the movie Gods Must Be Crazy, the Coke bottle scene where it goes out of the airplane window and hits the guy in the head and they start worshiping, the African tribes start worshiping the Coke bottle? That right there, guys, is that right there. And again, I'm not taking pot shots at the African. I'm just saying that is the world. That is what they're capable of. The Africans are much happier if you leave them alone. The thing is, but the West can't feed Africa much longer. The West is getting to the point where it's not able to feed itself because we're flooding in way too many third worlders that we have to feed and take care of. Again, the system will break itself. And living through that system collapse is where the new humans come into play. And I'm making this video as a bit of a babble video, but the thing is that we're in that time where it's like people, like I say, they're going to step away from the Internet of Things, Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, Internet of Things, in favor of Amish 2.0. In smaller, more ethnic communities, whatever, it's going to become more tribal. Not so much Wild West or Mad Max, but balkanization throughout the West, where the Muslim groups are with the Muslim groups, they'll run the cities and everything like that, but they're going to be just slums, that kind of thing. White people will be living in these little enclaves attacked by everybody else because that's what the system does, right? But that system is going to die to the point where it's like, okay, we want to attack all the white people because they're racist, bigot, we hate them, and we need them to die. So flooding them in, multiculturalism is not going to take out the white people because the white people are starting to realize that, okay, yeah, my own government hates me. This is well documented. And so you got Return to the Land. That's 1.0. That's Breakaway Civilization 1.0. What does 3.0 or 4.0 or 7.0 look like? Well, 7.0 looks like, oh, there's a white colony up in the Arctic somewhere. Where did they come from? We don't know. They're firing rockets into space. They're on their way to Mars. Let's go take them out with NATO. Oh, we can't even get near them because they vaporized our fucking naval fleet with some sort of big fucking intergalactic mega blaster gun. Because they weren't held back by the innovations and the AI. They take out our data centers because they knew that again, people are going to find a way to survive, and these people, these new thinkers, they're going to outthink your boomer John Lennonist imagine we all bleed basically Martin Luther King, we all bleed red thing. They're going to be more tribal. And again, it's not that I'm calling for it. I'm just saying that's the survival gene just doing its thing. The rest are going to try to become transhumanist. The depressed are going to take more drugs and commit higher rates of suiciding and offing themselves. The nihilist left-wing people are going to become more degenerate. They're going to become more OnlyFans girls. They're going to become more LGBTQXYZ, trans this, trans that. They're going to adopt the transhumanist technology and the implants and stuff like that. And they will die as a result. They will become more dependent. The immigration third worlders will come in, go on the first world welfare system, and turn it into a collapsation of a third world system, Hugo Chavez style, right? Again, extreme socialism is in every Socialism is nor good nor bad. It's, you can have any social program you want. You have to have a way to pay for it. This is why the basic universal income. This is why they're going to spend trillions of dollars on the data centers to be able to take away all the human jobs they can in manufacturing, stuff like that. But the thing is you'll need the data center so you put everybody on basic universal income. But where's that income going to come from? Like, that's the thing. How do you pay for it, right? You can't get blood from a stone. You can't spend your way out of debt. Keynesian economics can work if you practice on the austerity part of it, but you have to balance your budget. This is something the world leaders cannot do, seem to do, because they're more, again, the internet, people won't be able to function on the internet without an ID card. At that point, it's game over for most people, but that might be a good thing because that puts human 2.0, modern humanity 2.0 on the map of survivability. So maybe by destroying people's ability to go on the internet and use the modern banking system, you create these new systems of survival where it's like it doesn't matter. It's a system parallel to the other system. It's just the system to survive has to have the hate speech laws. It has to have the censorship on everything. It has to control your banking. It has to control your how many hours you're able to work. It has to control what you're allowed to grow, what you're allowed to eat, etc., etc. It's a nihilistic system. It's a dead hand. And it will kill itself under its own weight. And it is. We see it. Usury doesn't work. Expand does not work. Expanding your population everywhere unnaturally through mass immigration does not work because it's all inflated, right? So when it collapses under the weight of itself, you don't want to be under that weight. And if you're hanging on to that drowning man, this is what the United States is going through right now, and every other Western country, is we're in the everything crisis, the housing crisis, the hospital crisis, the fentanyl crisis, the job crisis, the foreign worker crisis, the welfare migration crisis, the family displacement crisis of whatever. All these crises are hitting us now. The student debt bubble, the automotive debt bubble, this bubble, that bubble. And the thing is how do you get out of that swan dive? Well, the only way out is through, and it collapses to either a sustainable rate where you can have it, industrialization, but you have to get rid, like the stock market. The stock markets are not going to be around in 10 years. Digital ID, digital currency is probably going to be a thing, but it's going to be wrangled by gold and silver some way because nations are just going to reject it. Like money printing, putting digital numbers on a screen, whether it's encrypted codes of like Bitcoin or something like that, or just what the banks are already doing, fractional reserve, modern monetary theory. Like none of it is sustainable, right? People are going to want tangible value. In other words, a farmhand has to be worth a farmhand. Tomato's got to be a tomato. A piece of land has to be a piece of land. A tool has to be a tool. So the investor class dies. Why? Because they're incapable of keeping themselves alive without the brutality of, if you want to call it crony capitalism, crony fascism, or free market capitalism, of just cheapest stuff from the lowest bidder for everyday low prices, leading to everyday low wages, which leads to everybody unemployed and starving. Those people are going to lose all their investments, right? And that's what we're at the beginning stages of. It's just people don't see the bigger picture. They don't see the long thing. Now, there is ways out of it, and it's through production, through sustainability, and stuff like that. So anyway, I'm going to leave that at that because I got to get other things done today. There we go. I'll leave it at that because there's so much more to say. But this is why you come to this channel, is to get these long-term analysis on stuff. Because the 5-minute, Trump good, Trump bad, the 5-minute Carney good, Carney bad, Macron good, Macron, like that, the cheerleader stuff, Nick Fuentes versus this person, that doesn't do anything for you guys. That's not how you wire your brain to think. Look, there's a reason why I get 85 to probably now 92% of everything I predict. Arbitrary numbers, sure. But in general, if you track my track record, okay, especially off the old channel, that channel Man, that'll be an archaeological dig. Never before seen in history. It's like, this guy was a fucking prophet. I'm not a prophet. I'm just looking at the dots, zooming out the big picture, thinking more than 5 minutes down the road. And this is a big problem with the West because it's based on a stakeholder capitalist, venture capitalist, and vulture capitalist model that basically cannot think more than 5 minutes down the road. It's how do I make my quick dollar now rather than supply chain 2.0, which has to have redundancy, cost a little bit more, but be hardened to storms, pandemics, war, natural disaster, etc. No, the new people going forward will be thinking about these things. How do we, totalitarian governments, which are all over the West, we complain about like China and stuff like that being authoritarian, but Canada, the United States, the hate speech laws. What a stepping stone to authoritarianism, right? Ban this, ban that, whatever. People are figuring it out, but the new humans are the ones that are going to create the foundation for right-hand path people, and it's not going to be large. I'm sure when the Neanderthals died, there was only something like 350,000 of them estimated at the time. Okay, so that didn't take long. But in the modern era, when people with spina bifida could live to 100 years old, I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just saying that's the technology we're in. It takes a little bit longer for us to fall from grace. But believe you me, we are falling from grace, and it's very noticeable. You just have to kind of zoom out a bit, connect the dots, and see where we're going to be. So this is why I keep promoting survival mode for a lot of people. And yeah, there's that. Okay, so I'll leave it at that there for now because I got to get other things done. I got to get recording. I got to put my laundry in the freaking laundry thing and all that. And I got to turn up my heat now. Getting cool in the house. I turned all my heaters off or down, and now it's getting damp in here. All right, anyway, there we go.